You're listening to KORD. That's Jord with a K. All shitposts, all the time. Now we're getting a call in. Let's see. Nigger Faggot, you are on the line. Go ahead.
Christians worship a Jew.
Oh, I'm definitely a chick. I'm kind of mixed because my dad was male, but when people assume I'm transgender, what I think they're actually saying is, I've never heard a woman say anything useful or funny in my entire life. Shit, facts. It's hard out here, nigga. Do not come. That's a Kamala Harris reference. Remember her? And for president, pantsuits.
Christians worship a Jew.
The reason that meditation is so important in magic is because whatever we fasten our attention on, that's the direction that our energy is going to flow in. So when you're doing magic, you want to keep your mind as single-pointedly focused on whatever you're trying to accomplish as possible. So that's what meditation does. It trains your mind, so it's not constantly scattered and going into, all different directions and dispersing the energy that you're trying to build up.
Right. I know what you're talking about. I've read some books on magic. I mean, Crowley, wow. But Jesus, he sure comes across as somber sometimes.
Yes, he does.
Lord.
And it takes forever to sort of crack open what he's even saying. You've got to learn so much other stuff before you can even begin to understand what the hell he's actually talking about a lot of times, because so much of it is written in a kind of code.
Woo! Yeah, I've noticed that a lot of that magical stuff gets put in the code. It's like they're trying to protect... Yeah, I've noticed that compared to some magical writings, some of the Eastern traditions seem way more simple.
Well, yeah, and the reason for that is because, when you're talking about Eastern traditions, Eastern paths, most of these practices are set up to lead you to this state of what they call enlightenment, what in magic we call crossing the abyss. Eastern traditions are focused on doing that over a period of several lifetimes. Magic is like pouring jet fuel on that process. It aims to accomplish it in one lifetime. So what you're trying to do is cram several lifetimes of spiritual and energetic experiences into one. And that can be a little overwhelming sometimes.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. And is that Tantra? That reminds me of Tantra. It's Tantra.
Yes. Tantra actually plays a huge role in certain aspects or certain traditions of magic, like the OTO, which Crowley was the head of whenever he died.
So I noticed that you've been ordained in Rinzai Zen.
Rinzai Zen Buddhism, yes, it was the tradition that trained the samurai in ancient Japan. When I was in prison, I had a Zen master that would come back and forth from Japan to the prison. And, I sat Zazen meditation for years. And, honestly, I did not get as much out of years of Eastern practices as I did months of ceremonial magic. And I think part of that, they're both aiming at the same thing. But whenever we, especially someone coming from my background, just poor white trash from Arkansas who has no connection to, any Eastern tradition at all, I had to learn that stuff from scratch. So It was like learning an entire different language. Whereas magic deals with Western iconography, symbolism, things that, we've grown up having shoved into our psyche from the second we came into this world. So I think part of us, some really deep internal part, responds to it a lot quicker than it does the Eastern traditions.
Oh, right.
I'm declaring war on fat gay kids. Not the kids themselves, but on whatever's making them so fat, gay, and pathetic. I'm talking seed oils, SSRIs, MSNBC, and perverts masquerading as teachers and guidance counselors.
RTP, sicheren RTP. Alles was ich weiß ist Anal und Analytics, Bitch. Bitte don't be emotional mit mich. Komm hier und ride mein OG Dragon like your Khaleesi.
Ja, dreh mein Autos in der Jail-Cell. Mich und Profi aus der Friedhof und straight her. Ich hab Autismus in mein Schädel. Freut mich in der Wald wie Hansel und Gretel. Warum funktioniert mein Wifi nicht? Sie will ein Chat und ich bin GPT. Aufgepasst, Multiplays, diese Todes vor den Gs. Asperger Season Hur, wir sind die Autorität. Autismus, Autismus, Autismus. Ich hab Autismus, du hast Autismus. Autismus, Autismus, Autismus. Autismusik, das ist Autismusik.
Bin not like us, not like Autospaß. Ich habe Autospaß, wenn ich in die Audi-Gas muss. Ja, ich muss haben, die Autismus haben. Autismus ist bumm, Autismus ist bumm.
Ja, ich bin dein Virgin. Ich hab dein First-Chicks, I will not dein Virgin. Schmuck die Autist-Kusch vor mein Autismus. Elon Musk Money, ich hab die Autist-Fluss. Autist, das sind mein Pronouns. If you can pronounce, dann bist du ein Pronoun. Duisburg, all we know is Red Rum. Eiskalt, das ist Lobby und das Spektrum. Ich habe Codeine, Autismus, Spektrum. Ich habe Codeine, Autismus, Spektrum. Ich habe Codeine, Autismus, Spektrum. Dein Rektum, mein Tollerektum. Autismus, Autismus, Autismus. Ich hab Autismus, du hast Autismus. Autismus, Autismus, Autismus. Autismusik, das ist Autismusik.
Yeah, told her to get with the program. Ayy, I've been on top, yeah, I've been on top, yeah. I don't want to talk, yeah, I don't want to talk, yeah. I don't want to stop, yeah, I don't want to stop, yeah. I just want her to get up on top, yeah. That's.
How old are you?
I'm 19. Well, you look disappointed. Did you want me to be out?
Saw them transform Night City into a machine fueled by people's crushed spirits, broken dreams, and empty pockets. Corps have long controlled our lives, taken lots, and now they're after our souls. V, I've declared war not because capitalism's a thorn in my side or out of nostalgia for an America gone by. This war's a people's war against a system that spiraled out of our control. It's a war against the fucking forces of entropy. Understand? Do whatever it takes to stop them, defeat them, gut them. If I gotta kill, I'll kill. If I need your body, I'll fucking take it.
死んだは初めて俺に伝えている。
絶望の匂いだ。
面白いこと見せようか。ほら、こんなにガチンが多すぎて。
お父さん。
あかん。
ドナルド君はまだ死ぬ時じゃないでしょ。
アメリカ、万歳。ファイト。
絶対負けないよ。
ランド、ズライドまで。
出ろ。だってまだサンキュー言ってないでしょ。一回も言ってください。
おい、仲良くしてね。この世界、傷ついていけるかな。昔グレートだった。大きにまたグレートになるかな。あのさ、有名人なら誰かのマンコを掴んでいいさ。そうそうそうそう。やらせるで。
Okay, you need to pay attention because this is crazy. Looks maxing is a CIA operation, and you are being brainwashed. Okay, so we all know where looks maxing originated from. It originated from forums like 4chan, and recently 4chan has been busted, and half of the 4chan moderators were actually working with the government.
Was apparently some of the emails that were leaked, according to the Jannies, the moderators, belong to .gov accounts. Now, .gov obviously belongs to the government.
So what this means is the government had a lot of influence over looks maxing forums on 4chan. They used your insecurities to make you like men.
ができなくなってしまった。病院の一室で、一つの細胞の中の蜂が死ぬように、死んでいくと。今現代の死は病気にしろ、あるいは交通事故にしろ、何らのドラマがない、英雄的な死というものもない時代に我々生きております。それで、人間の生命というのは不思議なもので、自分のためだけに生きて、自分のためだけに死ぬというほど人間は強くないんです。というのは人間は何か理想なり、何かのためということを考えてるんで、生きるのも自分のためだけに生きることにはすぐ飽きてしまう。すると死ぬのも何かのためということが必ず出てくる。それが昔言われた大義というものです。そして大義のために死ぬということが人間の最も華々しい、あるいは英雄的な、あるいは立派な死に方だというふうに考えられている。しかし今は大義がない。これは民主主義の政治形態というものは大義なんてものいらない政治形態ですから当然なんですが、それでも心の中に自分を超える価値が認められなければ、生きていることすら無意味になるというような心理状態がないわけではない。
The early church after the resurrection of Christ.
Between resurrection and 313 or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
So Christianity is this like small fringe movement of a bunch of, and early on they're still associated in the pagan world with the Jews. They're like a group of Jews. They just follow this.
So they're thought of as Jews at the time, but like an offset of Judaism.
Yeah.
Because they kind of are,
but
right?
Stranger. Because so your religion in the ancient world is largely tied to your ethnicity. Your religion in the ancient world is largely tied to your ethnicity. Your religion in the ancient world is largely tied to your ethnicity.
Right.
And so conversion wasn't unusual.
Off with your head! Dance till you're dead! Heads are up! Heads are up! Heads are up! On the floor!
You can hear me. Warjord. Yeah, guys, follow me on Twitter at Warjord. There are limits to how schizophrenic you're allowed to be on YouTube. Twitter has no such policy. Alistair Crowley here being accused of putting things up his bottom. Very rude. Very, very rude. Look, lads, I owe you all an apology. I should have streamed yesterday, according to the StreamYard notification that I received this morning. I did not know that. But apparently, when entering the time at which I planned to stream, I might have lagged out a little bit, skipped forward by an entire day, lost track of reality. For future reference, if you see these streams posted for a Friday, Freya's Day, Venus Day, I mean, the chances of me streaming on a Friday are slim. Wednesday, Odin's Day, Wotan's Day, Saturn's Day, Saturday, the Sabbath, when all the Jewish people are restricted from using technology. You're more likely to, I'm more likely to stream on those days for obvious reasons. However, regardless, you were misled. I misled you. I let you down. You probably need some sort of groveling, fucking sycophantic apology, right? From me. I'm so sorry, guys. Some of you I see arrived, turned up, even hit the like button. I love you. I'm not even saying that from like a cringe, corny kind of back of my throat. I'm from saying that's a guttural pit of my stomach. I love you for liking the stream. Eternally grateful, humble, etc. I've just lost the plot a little bit, guys, if I'm being brutally honest with you. I've just sort of like gone off the deep end a little bit, read one too many occult books. And I, you know, I mean, like, I can give you excuses, but I don't want to do that. I'd rather just give you an explanation. The explanation is I fucked up and I set the wrong time for the stream. What is incorrect? What is incorrect? What did you see out of that introduction that you thought was incorrect? Let me know, dude. I'm fascinated. Michelle, it's an interesting comment, but I can't highlight it for obvious reasons. Watch your language. Thank you, mate. Appreciate it. We back, at least for the next 15 minutes. Something like that. Yeah, I went to Amsterdam. It's a long story. I don't want to bore you guys with my off-camera shenanigans, but yeah, it's something like that. Okay, so look. We're going to watch the Jordan Peterson thing because it gets super self-indulgent. I didn't get a chance to watch it this week. Everybody's watched it already. Everybody's talked about it already. Every fucking hot take under the sun has already been given on this. So, like, if you don't want to stick around, I totally understand. This is super self-indulgent, me just watching content on the internet. But before we dive into it, do you guys want to just give me your... do you guys want to just give me... Yeah, I love you too. Do you guys want to give me your opinion on JBP? Do you want to give me what you think of Jordan B. Peterson? Do you want to just give me what you've heard other people say about Jordan B. Peterson? Would you mind doing the stream for... Guys, would you mind doing the stream for me? Would you mind just like, I'll sit here and you stream? Like you do things and say things into the mic? Because I'm fucking lagging out right now. Like really, I mean, I don't want to be too reductive. I don't want to assume that you're all au fait with JBP like I am. Like you followed the man's fucking career all the way since the gender fiasco in the Canadian universities circa 2016. I'm not going to assume that, but I'm going to assume at least that you know who he is. I'm going to assume at least that you've seen this circus this week of JBP versus 20 atheists. Whenever I think of JBP, I can't help but think of this. I don't know why.
Ready. Rat is this. The rats are all like this. The rat goes like this. So the rat's like this. The normal rat is like this. That's the normal rat. Like this. Like this. It sniffs. It's like this for quite a while. He's like this. And then maybe he sniffs. You are now a normal rat. You're ready, man. Most of you aren't foaming at the mouth. And, you know, like fundamentally, why? None of you are stark naked. Why? Why? Why are you wearing jeans? You're doomed. Why are you not afraid?
just such an intensely memeable guy. Just like even when, yeah, exactly. Even when he was fat, let's be real, he was chubby, he had peak aura. And I guess this is guys, this is the crux of my argument. If you just want a hot take it, scoff it down like some sort of greedy information squirrel, and you want to take that away, run off away into the woods with it. Here's my nugget of wisdom for you. When he was fat, when he was Gnostic, when he was a bit wacky and hippie and eccentric and off the wall, when he was not your average run-of-the-mill Harvard psych professor who clearly leaned more towards the work of Carl Jung than the work of Sigmund Freud, if you know what I'm saying. He was such an interesting guy. He was such a fucking powerful guy. He's always been cringe. He's always been heavily memeable. But look, guys, you got to understand the name Jordan. How schizo should we go this evening? Let's just turn it up to 11. Name physiognomy. Okay, in that Solomonic sense of you can call it by its name, you can command it. Do you really know what the name Jordan means? It's a Hebrew name. I'm not going to tell you what kind of name. I'm not going to tell you what kind of name it is. It's a Hebrew name, okay? It's a Hebrew name literally after the river. It means to flow down, to descend, to be humble. Terrible fucking name for me, I'll grant you that. But there's something to that. There's something to the name Jordan. There's something to the name of this guy, Jordan, who kind of comes wandering out of the desert preaching a message. I don't know. Oh, he did, didn't he? He did, didn't he? He did, didn't he? He did, didn't he? I want some Christians to call in later. I want evangelicals. I want Catholics. I want ortho bros. I want you guys to tell me that the decline of Jordan B. Peterson is not directly linked to his embracing of Christian ethics and Christian morals, because I'll reiterate it and say it again. He was way cooler when he was a Gnostic. He sold out when he became a Christian. In fact, we'll get to the fact that he can't even admit that he's a Christian. But for now, just acknowledge an intensely memeable guy, a funny guy. At the same time, a guy we've all learned an insane amount from. Even if we haven't learned it from him directly, we've learned it indirectly. Many of you are too young to remember the great meme war of 2016, but he was an instrumental figure in it. Now, is it absolutely pathetic that we live in a time where where the hero of the hour is an old man who essentially won't call a man a woman? Like, is that? Yes, it is. It's tragic and it's pathetic and it's a damning indictment of our time. But is it Jordan B. Peterson's fault? No, it fucking isn't. Right? And he did do the right thing. He did stand up. Cometh the hour, cometh the man. There is a reason you know who JBP is. So is there something we can do? Is there something we can do here where we take a nuanced position where we acknowledge the greatness of the man whilst also acknowledging how much of an absolute flop he's been, and then maybe even questioning why beyond the surface level of like just where the money's coming from? And of course, Quay Bono, we are going to look into the Daily Wire and the whole pyramid structure and like where the money comes from and how his views have changed since he started working with them. But yeah, I guess if you're Christian, if you're ortho bro or whatever, like call in. It's sad for me. There's so few people in the public space have similar opinions to me. There's a very good reason why, even though I believe in Christ in a very profound way, I don't call myself a Christian. To be a Christian, dogmatically, you have to believe in the resurrection and the Immaculate Conception and the virgin birth. Those are not the same thing, by the way. But you have to believe in all of the Trinity and this, that, and the other, and things I don't necessarily subscribe to. But because I was, raised a Christian, because my dad is Church of England, because my mum is Roman Catholic, because I went to a fucking religious school every single day and had an assembly in a chapel where I had to get up some days, a lot of days actually, and read to 1,000 kids from the Bible. I kind of call myself like a cultural Christian, but I'll never take it further than that. I'll never say I'm a Christian because I respect Christians, at least, some of them. And it feels like a lot. I can really understand why Jordan doesn't call himself a Christian. He's not a Christian. He's a Gnostic. Some of you will not know what that means. Others of you will have a completely fucking cloudy definition of what that word means. I'm sort of just spitting shit into the ether here when I say he's a Gnostic. That's like saying how long is a piece of string? Gnostic means different things to different people. I don't know. Let me get rid of some of these videos here. You guys seriously just listening to me waffle? I haven't even started the video yet. But there is a lot of that. And yeah, that is literally me, like religiously. Of course, there's other religious influences in my background also. This dude, he wants everyone on board. Okay, here we go. This is good. Thank you, mate, for actually contributing something that's like good for me to spar with and contend with. You can't think he's actually a Christian. The money corrupted him, and he pretends to be some kind of Christian to appeal to the conservative crowd. Boom! Finally, we're getting into it. Thank you, dude, mon. Yeah. Okay. Ostensibly, it looks like it, doesn't it? Seemingly, it has the veneer or appearances of that. But before this guy cucked out, before this guy went to work for Ben Shapiro and the Daily Wire to cater lukewarm, milquetoast, conservative Christian talking points back to the audience that Ben Shapiro has acquired, he did a profound series of lectures on Christianity, on the Gnostic symbolic meaning of Christianity. Those lectures, that series of lectures, actually brought a lot of young men back to Christianity, young men who would otherwise right now be atheists. Are you saying, George, that Gnosticism might actually be a great gateway for atheists to return to the fold of Christianity? I guess I am. Of course, if you're a dyed-in-the-wool Christian, then it's just heresy, isn't it, really? And it's just atheism, isn't it, really? Because it's not right, it's not correct, it's not the exact right Christian dogma. It's also tiring, isn't it? And then, of course, he cries a lot. And this I can't defend. But this I would see more in contention. Like this I would see more in line, actually, with this Christian slave morality that he seems to have adopted. Is it not a coincidence that the more Christian, and I'm using quote marks here, Christian, right, Jordan Peterson becomes, the more he larps as something that he is not in order to appease his paymasters, the more of a pathetic mess, the more of a drug-addled, benzoed out, crying, weeping mess he becomes. I don't know. All right, let's see. Video file. He's just such a memeable guy. How can
women are disgusting. There's lots of them. I don't know how many of them. I've had enough of women. I don't want to have anything to do with women. Why? Well, that doesn't require much explanation. Your girlfriend is like your mother. I'm often accused of being gay. Well, yes. Obviously, meow, let's go kill some snakes. Hitler did this beautifully. The Nazis were unbelievably great, Nazi-like. Like, what the hell is that? Look at me, I'm Hitler. I've watched 100 movies, but I don't understand up. Okay, up. From where? Why up? It's low resolution.
Yeah, and then what was this, right? What was this like multi-interfaith, like, what can we learn from Islam? I remember seeing that, and I remember questioning it, and I remember thinking, what the fuck is he up to? This was before I had connected the dots of who he's working for now and the whole intellectual dark web thing and who was behind all that. I hadn't quite fully put the dots together yet. But look, in answer to your thing, dude, man, there are some people who would argue he is a Christian. I'm not going to, for the same reason that I don't argue that I am a Christian, right? Because to be a Christian, no matter the denomination, you have to believe a very specific set of things. And that's what religio in Latin means, codes, rules. You have to follow a very specific set of rules in order to call yourself a Christian. However, I would go as far as to say that Jordan B. Peterson is a follower of Jesus Christ. If you ask Jordan Peterson, does he think Jesus is the most profound spiritual teacher of the last 4,000, 5,000, forever, I don't know, of all time, he would probably say yes. If you asked him, does he think that the messages of the Bible supersede any of the pagan morality that came before, he would probably say yes. If you asked him, does he think Christianity is intrinsically good and therefore intrinsically godly, he would say yes. Right? Is it something that should be preserved and kept alive in the West? He would say yes. So by all these checks and balances, he is, in some ways, culturally Christian, right? But no, I wouldn't flex on you, an actual Christian, and say and claim that he's, I don't want to encroach on your ground. I want to be very clear that we're talking from a Gnostic perspective here, and so is Peterson, and that's half the problem. Half the problem is Peterson's paymasters and who's in control of Peterson. The other half of the problem is that the internet doesn't understand nuance. I know this is so unpopular, but it's like everything has to be black and white. We'll get into it when we watch the debate with the atheist kid. In fact, let me pull it up now, right? Because there's so many examples of this. There's so many fucking examples of this. You can't have a new, even what I'm doing now is going to be wildly unpopular. You cannot have a sensible, nuanced position on the internet. Firstly, it's boring as fuck. Nobody wants to watch somebody have like a halfway position. Either go all in or go home, right? It doesn't get views. It doesn't get engagement. It's not as easy to get. And secondly, it's just not black and white. And the internet leaves no room for grayness, no room for moral ambiguity. It's fucking crazy. It's fucking crazy. Finally, somebody's saying, okay, I don't know how much you know about them, but I would advise you all to look into the this is a word I've always struggled with, Albigensians. I would advise you all to look into the so-called Albigensian Crusades in the south of France, where somewhere in the region of 250,000 Cathar Christians were murdered by the Catholic Church. Very famous fucking scene in the histories where some Catholic bishop orders the attack on some Cathar town. And they're like, do we kill them all, even the women and the children? And the Catholic bishop is like, God, kill them all. God will know his own. It's like, based. Which if you're Catholic and you're just like so detached from it, based. See, those people, right? Let me show you something. Those, for you guys, this is what you want Jordan Peterson to be. And I'm going to show you why you're idiots in a second. Not for believing what you believe.
The expansion of the Islamic empire is a proof of that. Peterson, to be
Then why did it
completely
stop at Europe's borders, so to speak? If it was a
honest,
miraculous
yeah, it
expansion.
stopped because of it wasn't successful then.
Yeah? Is that what you want? Yeah, some of that trad west shit. Oh yeah, Black people do. Yeah. Yeah, that goes hard, right? That's what you want for it. What did he actually fucking say there? What was the actual hot take there? Mohammed Hijab, the Muslim guy from London, who's like a known, renowned Muslim scholar and possible prescribed terror group leader, he allegedly, he just simply is coping about why Islam stopped at the edges of Europe. It's one bar from Peterson. He says, well, why did Islam stop at the edge of Europe? And you guys just picked up the ball and ran with it. You were like, this is our Christian savior. Look.
I see that the expansion of the Islamic empire is a proof of that. Peterson, to be
Then why did
completely
it
honest
stop at
Why did it stop at Europe? It's a great question, and it's completely fair, and it does put the Muslim guy in his place, but he's not saying we beat you. He's simply saying, he's simply putting the Muslim guy in his place. Now, you guys, of course, are so starved, right? In places like America, where you're fundamentalist Christian, evangelical Christian, or whatever, you're so starved for good, honest figureheads to actually lead you, who actually believe in what you believe and are about that. Which is why I recommend all of you follow Wesley Huff, because even though scripturally he's wrong, he's a stand-up guy. He's a good guy. He's like a good guy you should follow. But yeah, man, like, listen, this is what you want. Red meat, right?
it stop at Europe's borders, so to speak? If it was a
it
miraculous
didn't, yeah, it
expansion.
stopped because of it wasn't successful then.
So yeah, of course, you wanted him to be the Christian figurehead. You wanted him to stand up. You wanted him to give you the kind of like, and it's a shame. It's a shame that, well, who have you got other than like Fuentes? You really don't have. But expecting Jordan Peterson to be that guy and then being disappointed when he fell short of that is just like a classic example of don't meet your heroes. I can't believe you guys I can't believe what you guys made him out to be. What he actually was is incredible. But he's not that. He's not that guy that you all were trying to make him out to be. I don't know, man. Maybe it's just me. Let me get rid of some of these and share screen. What's it called? It's Jubilee. Now, look, many of you will know that I used to work for Vice magazine back in the day. One second. Okay, cool. So many of you will know that I used to work for Vice magazine back in the day, right? Like as a journalist, I interned for them and then I was a freelancer for them. That song actually at the beginning of this, like Heads Will Roll by the Yeah Yeah Yeahs, that was when I first heard that song I was doing a music video shoot for the boyfriend of the lead singer of that Yeah is band, Small World. Anyway, when I worked at Vice magazine, I saw how these things are twisted and how they're manipulated and how clicks rule everything when it comes to online content. And it made me very, very cynical. So I guess half of it is Jordan Peterson's. I guess it's split in three. 1/3 is Jordan Peterson's refusal to in his own background is not. 1/3 of it is the black and white and anti-nuance of the internet. But the third is like the media, is Jubilee and how much they twist this shit just for views, All right, I'm going to play this. I'm going to play the intro. I've got to nip out for a little bit, but I'm going to play the intro. You guys can watch it. The introduction is literally just for anyone who hasn't. I don't judge him for his crying. There is a time and there is a place. Can you imagine if Jordan Peterson cried about white demographic? We'll get into it when I come back, all right? But let me just play this for you first. Hold on. Present, share screen. Okay, hold on. I mean, I don't know what to make of it, TBH. You guys can tell me.
The West End, the choice is a little bit overwhelming.
Ads. Okay, what else you got here? Fraud reaction, Gnosticism. Yeah, look, I'm not everybody means different things by Gnosticism, so I want to be really careful about even using this word. But that is what Peterson is best described as a Gnostic. You cursed me yesterday by not streaming. It caused my work to call me on the yeah. Synchronicities, man. I'm super sorry. That was definitely me. It was definitely me. What's with these ads? Okay, cool.
You say that. I haven't claimed that.
Oh, what is this? Is this Christians versus atheists?
Don't be a smartass.
Either you're a Christian or you're not. Which one is it?
You're really quite something, you are.
Aren't I? But you're really quite nothing. Right? You're not a Christian.
Okay, I'm done with him. Hello there. I'm Dr. Jordan Peterson. I'm a clinical psychologist, a professor emeritus at the University of Toronto, an author, a podcaster, public speaker, and today I'm surrounded by 25 atheists. My first claim, atheists rejecting.
Peterson,
doing?
Claim here that atheists no rejecting. My studying to become a traditional Catholic. Over years of study, both this issue formally and living out religion so deeply?
Well, you obviously feel that you missed something when you were practicing for the priesthood. Your aim was off then. So there's always the possibility that it's still off now.
What was off about my aim in the first place?
I don't know. That might take a long time to figure out.
Well, then it seems kind of like this no true Scotsman type of fallacy in which you're the arbiter of people's aims and how they understand those aims to be. How is it that you can claim that people don't know something that you know about their life despite not having met them?
Well, it's obviously a generic claim, just like the atheist claim that there's no God is a generic claim. In your case, it would have to be specified more, and I'm not claiming to understand what was going on in your mind, but my experience with atheists is twofold.
So I do love comments like this because they kind of antagonize and they intentionally, this is a wind up. Obviously, I don't want to lean too hard into this, but of course, paganism is far, far older than Abrahamism. And I don't even think are you really an Abrahamist yourself, or is this just LARP? Like, people believe in anything anymore? Can we have some fucking nuance, please? Sorry to interrupt, guys, but I just wanted to set the stage for you here. Let's just keep going. Let's hear this first one out. First claim of Peterson: atheists reject God, but they don't understand what they're rejecting. I'll give you my take on this when we get to the end of it.
Is that they have a very reductive notion of what constitutes God, let's say in the Judeo-Christian tradition. And they've often been hurt by someone who was religious or by the religious enterprise or perhaps by God himself, so to speak, and that's left them with an animus.
But I think that you have a reductive view of what atheism is. You've defined religion so broadly to include any sort of having aim in life, any sort of cultural archetypes, or having a metaphorical substrate. And atheism to you is a very specific type of like three people in the world that are these Raskolnikov type of, they want to get away with a perfect murder. It seems like you have the reductive view of what an atheist is.
Well, let's start with your claim. How do you define the God that you're rejecting? Like, what is God to you? You studied in the church, you found that unsatisfactory.
So come on, chat. Put your money where your mouth is. Testicles out, everyone, please, especially the ladies in the chat. Let's hear it. What's your definition of God? What do you think the best definition of God is? I mean, if we're going to play dice, if we're actually going to watch this bullshit, if we're actually going to sit down at the table and entertain this stuff, like, what do we think? What is God? There's the Kalam cosmological argument. I never really liked that. I feel like it's just yeeted from Aristotle anyway, but I always liked the ontological argument. God by definition. God is that than which nothing greater can be conceived. God is the sum total of the universe plus one, by definition. I always found that to be the most compelling, but I don't know. Let me know, guys. Serious question. Not too deep for a Saturn's Day, I hope. Not too philosophical for you. Yeah, let me know. What do you think God is? How would you best describe God? In as few words as possible.
How would you characterize what you rejected?
I think the average Christian believer, when they say that they're Christian and they believe, they mean some sort of God that is all-powerful, all-perfect, is somehow involved in the matters of this world.
A personal God, an intervening God, the God of the four omnis: omnipresent, omnibenevolent, omnipotent, right? All-powerful, all-knowing, all-loving, everywhere, all the time, loving everyone. To which Scottish atheist philosopher David Hume would say, well, if God's everywhere all of the time loving everyone, then how come suffering exists in the world? And I would understand that if God weren't literally capable of doing absolutely anything by definition. That's why the ontological argument is the best. That's why that's the best definition of God. If you define God as such, you can't fall into these petty traps. But yes, to go back to Peterson, to go back to this debate, what do we mean when we say God in this context? The kid is well-meaning. I'm not getting any bad vibes from this kid. He's simply asking Dr. Peterson, like the God, he's simply telling Dr. Peterson, the God of the four omnis, the God of the Nicene Creed, the God of the early Christian church up until today. That's what he means by God. And Peterson... Damn it, Peterson has to do, well, what do you mean by God? It's going to be a long fucking night. Holy shit.
And that we look to them through wisdom and with the Logos incarnate in Christ. And it also seems like you don't believe in religion in the way that the average Christian says that they believe in religion. And there are as many gods out there as there are believers because everybody has mutually exclusive and different views.
Now, this is fucking retarded. Okay, this idea that everyone has different gods. You have a different God, I have a different God. It's like, no, what's a church then? Like, a church is a collection of people coming together and agreeing on what their God is and what that looks like. So that's retarded. But his underlying point is kind of correct. This group has one idea of God. This group has another idea of God. Let's see where he goes with this.
Views of what God is. So it seems
Well,
like
if everybody had mutually exclusive views of what God is, no one could speak to each other.
Yeah, that's
The mere fact of communication presumes a commonality of assumption and definition. And it's certainly not the case that I regard any archetypal manifestation whatsoever as equally religious. So that's not a real claim. Let me give you an example. For example, there's a sub-narrative in the story of Moses where Moses is rewarded with a glimpse of God. Okay, and that's one of the ways that God is characterized in the Old Testament stories.
Yes.
Now, Moses is a faithful servant of God and a good man. At least that's the case within the confines of the story.
one possible interpretation.
Case within the confines of the story, obviously. But
Well, not obviously. When we look at the Bible can't precisely say anything because there are so many different exegetical and hermeneutic views of this particular book, and that everybody has everybody has disagreed historically on. It seems like even the most benign detail about a book this big, and it seems like you can only say that the Bible says something if you first presuppose that it's univocal.
So your claim essentially is that Moses in the Old Testament plays the role of a villain or is irrelevant? Because the alternative claim
I'm
is
saying that we
he's
can't
good.
know because we can't talk to those authors.
If you are going to start with the presupposition that there's nothing I can say about any of these stories that you're not going to disagree with from the perspective that there are multiple potential competing claims, then I can't speak with you. So
and we also have a short time here, so I want.
So then there's this, isn't there? Then Revel comes out of nowhere, out of left field with this thing of like, no wonder the merchants don't have a hard time conquering the West when you worship one of their manifestations. That's interesting. Okay, I'm gonna explain it to you in the only way I know how, and this is gonna be so esoteric, I'm gonna lose half the chat, but I don't care, okay? Jesus is the son of God. He's a son of Jupiter, okay? Born amongst Saturn's children who take it easy on the Sabbath. I don't think Jesus is like, I think he's an anti-merchant character. I think you see this very clearly. I think 13-year-old Jesus smashes up a marketplace in a temple. I just can't get on board with this fully. However, there is something in what you're saying, right? There is something in the Nietzschean idea of slave morality, of a weak Christian morality, of turning the other cheek, of the meek shall inherit the earth. This is the best comment so far. Thank you, Lewis, for chipping in, buddy. Yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe Peterson painted himself as such, but I don't think so. I think what happened is the two things got conflated. I think what happens is him protesting against the trans stuff, him being a radical, vocal, political voice in Canada got mixed up with his belief stuff. And then too much money, mammon, got in the way, right? Mammon reared its ugly head up and got in the way. And he realized, hey, there's an overlap here between this Christian, Gnostic, kind of Bible, Jungian Bible archetype stuff I've been doing with Jonathan Pajot or whatever, and Ben Shapiro's mostly conservative Christian middle American audience. I think that's what's happened. I think money's won at the end of the day. I could be wrong. This is my overview, obviously.
I want to get to the core of what you're arguing here, and I'd love if we could.
The core of what I'm arguing is that atheists reject God, but they don't.
I see your point. I disagree. I see your point. I think it's too easy. It's too easy and too reductive to say that Christianity is de-radicalization. If it is, it's a 2,000-year-long de-radicalization program since ancient Judea. I personally don't subscribe to the idea that Jewish people have been running the world for much longer than the last couple hundred years. through banking and media and such. I don't think like Jewish people were running the world back in ancient Rome. I think this is cope. I just have to be real with you. I think you're coping. The coma thing, and he came back a little different. Yeah, he did, didn't he? It wasn't just a coma thing, right? It was his daughter who knew he was addicted to benzos, had him flown to Russia for special treatment in a Russian hospital. The whole thing's very fucking sus. It's very, very fucking sus.
Understand what they're rejecting. So I'm trying to give you an example of what's being rejected.
Okay, so Vice
and
is
its
like
complexity.
Jubilee now, but it wasn't always like that. When I started at Vice, it was like fucking 6 autistic hipsters in a warehouse, like writing edgy articles of like 10 ways to hide speed at an airport in your luggage or whatever, like just really stupid, dumb stuff. And then over time, it got bought out. It got bought out by Rupert Murdoch, the guy who owns Fox News, basically, and just became this really generic, like, you know, BuzzFeed, Jubilee kind of. Occasionally, Vice will still drop a banger, but when I joined, they were making like the Vice Guide to Liberia. And they were talking to like General Butt Naked and stuff and doing just like the most raw, interesting interviews on the internet. And I guess they just sold out too. They became like everything else. The reason I bring up Vice is because I know what this is like. There was a big contention at the start of this when this video dropped. And people were like, oh, look, he's calling himself a Christian because the video was 1 Christian versus 20 atheists. And then very quickly after the video came out, there's a big furore. Christians are freaking out and saying Jordan Peterson isn't Christian. Atheists are freaking out and saying Jordan Peterson isn't Christian. Nobody feels like it's a fair fight. Everybody feels hard done by. The internet cannot handle a single ounce of fucking nuance. And lo and behold, the title is changed shortly afterwards. Now, everyone is like, oh, look, they had to change the title because he got caught. He's not really a Christian. Owned, point proven. Guys, I would suspect if Jubilee are anything like the kind of organization that I think they're like, I would imagine that Jordan Peterson had absolutely no fucking idea. His manager or whoever's looking after him, his handler at the Daily Wire, received an email from Jubilee, and it was like, yeah, we'd love to get Jordan in as part of our 20v1 segment to debate 20 atheist college students or whatever. And it was never framed of this thing of like 1 Christian versus that. I can guarantee you it was never pitched to Jordan Peterson. If he's this much on the fence about saying he's a Christian, do you think he really would have accepted going to a debate where he has to laugh? See, on the one hand, yeah, I think what Lewis said is only half true. He might have leaned into it a little bit for the money. He might have pretended to be he might still pretend to be a little bit more Christian than he actually is doctrinally. I think he's flirting with Catholicism at the moment. People say he's been seen going to Catholic church or whatever. And it's a process. Maybe he is finding his way back to the faith. Fuck do I know? I don't know. He certainly looks like it. But yeah, I think it's more than, I think people are painting him out to be more Christian than he is. I think it's very beneficial for Ben Shapiro and Jeremy Boring and all these other guys to have a guy like him in their back pocket who they can just wheel out whenever they want. Like, look, here's our token Christian spokesperson. When that isn't Peterson at all, and that's never been Peterson.
Okay, so God rewards Moses with a glimpse of the divine. So this is a definition of the God.
Yeah, I don't know which particular branch of Gnosticism he is, like if he's a Sethian or if he's a Valentinian, right? But what I mean is, when I say he's a Gnostic, he's clearly read the Gnostic Gospels. He clearly knows that there is a Gospel of Thomas. He clearly knows that there is a Gospel of Mary Magdalene. You can tell this if you watch his lectures, right? He's clearly influenced heavily in his practice and in his psychological work by Carl Jung, who again, was never someone who explicitly came out and said, I am a Gnostic. It's a weird fucking thing to call yourself, but who's very much associated with these kind of Gnostic ideals. It's a Gnostic interpretation of Christianity. Do I mean Jordan Peterson is sitting there thinking that the world is made by a demiurge and like Yahweh is actually saying, no, I don't mean that at all. That's like one branch of early Gnostic ideas. I just mean he doesn't have a completely Nicene, dogmatic Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Yes, Jesus is God. Yes, he died and was crucified and rose again. Yes, he came out of a virgin who had never had sex before. He doesn't have that. That's what I mean by Gnostic. And I guess for a lot of you, that's not going to be Christian enough.
Rejecting.
A possible one.
I said ah.
Yeah.
I didn't say the. I
know.
said ah.
That
Right.
is possible, yes.
Okay. So despite the fact that Moses is a stellar character and he's had a long and difficult life and can withstand a lot of difficulty and travail,
Well,
God puts him.
while you're on the subject, I'll just say this. The 100 gorillas thing is a real indication of how far we have fallen as a society and as a species. Okay? The fact that people are having this conversation brazenly, openly, and in the public forum is frankly disgusting to me. It proves that so many people are devoid of touching grass. It proves that so many people need to go outside into nature. We need to send an entire generation of Gen Alpha males to work on Mars, right? Mining helium-3 out of the surface because, like, we're fucked. We're fucked. It's not about, honestly, yeah, a gorilla is a strong animal, okay? A gorilla, ooh, gorilla, look how fast it moves. Look how big it is. Look how strong it is. 100 people. Bro, give me 100 of the weakest, gayest, trans. Give me 100 disabled people, and I'm pretty sure I could take on a gorilla. Get me like retard strength. Give me 100 people, any 100 people, and you could beat a gorilla. How far have we fallen as a culture that we don't see how it's just like the fact we shouldn't even be having the, you know, I'm pretty sure if you read like Pliny and you read like the fall of the Roman Empire, and I'm pretty sure in there's a big bit about how in the ancient Roman Forum they were talking about who would win in a fight, like one gorilla or 100 men. You know, I'm pretty sure that's the spectacle that was happening in the Colosseum as Rome burned. Like, what the fuck? Are you guys that? You don't see 100 men. 100 men could get fucking. It's insane. It's insane because I guess none of you have been outside. Like, none of you can comprehend. When was the last time you faced off against 100 men? You have no perspective. You have no proportion. Fucked, mate. Absolutely fucked. It's just so yeah. That's that's the tangent on the gorilla thing for you. It makes me sick that we're even having this conversation. All sense of proportion is gone. Okay, you need to read René Guénon's essay about quantity and quality. It might be a whole last book actually about how we're moving into an age, right? We're moving away from quality and we're moving into quantity. And that's why nobody understands why 100 people wouldn't fuck up a gorilla. All right.
Puts him between two cliffs, so he can just see a crack of what's in front of him. And when God walks by, he allows him to see his back.
It was me. I had to like do a bunch of stuff, and you guys have my undivided attention now. But I told you this was going to be self-indulgent and basically just me watching content. So I apologize. I'm here now. I just had to dip for a little bit.
Okay, so the implication of that story is that the divine is fundamentally unknowable. It's a pinnacle experience, and that people in their finitude have to be shielded from a comprehensive vision of the basis of reality. Well, that's not the God that's defined in that manner, right? It's not a simple.
The deep conspiracy take. The deep conspiracy take that they built him up as this kind of fake Christian leader so they could knock him down. The 3D Judean chess move. Natman Prime, bro, I like the way you think. You're always one step ahead of, like, you know. This stream looks like the benzo pill in JBB's stomach with yeah, lagging and chucking up everywhere.
Personification. It's not a simple old man in the sky. It's something that in its essence is unknowable and overwhelming. And that isn't, in my experience, the God that's defined by atheists who are attempting to undermine the story. I mean, it's this.
All right, I'm going to say it, Coco, because you made me do this, Coco. I just want you to know this was going to be a peaceful stream. I just want you to know I was not going to get my bipolar, ADHD, autistic ass knickers in a twist, right? Until you said this, and now I have to go off, Coco. You've done this, Coco. You did this to me. All right, here you go. I'm going to say it. You ready? What do you mean by atheist? What do you mean by atheist, though? What do you mean by atheist? Is he an atheist in the sense I described before? I don't think you can call him an atheist. I think he's essentially a theist. I think from there we get into problems. I think he defines God perhaps differently from how you would. And this is the thing about reading Carl Jung. If you go into reading Jung as an I do not recommend reading Jung for most of you, by the way, just being it's a waste of time for a lot of you. It's basically a mystic text, but whatever. If you read Jung, say you read the Black Books, if you go into reading it as an atheist, you're going to come out 10 times more atheist. If you go into it as a Christian, you're going to come out as a fundamentalist Christian. If you go into it as a Gnostic, you're going to come out as a super Gnostic. Jung is it's like that. You're going to take whatever and you're going to project it onto Jung. So there's an argument. Yeah, look, there's a whole way in which you could see Jung and thereby extension Peterson as atheists. But I think if you asked him, he'd say he believes in God. I just think it's the Jesus question that you'd have a trouble pinning him down on.
It's the same claim, for example, that you're a finite creature and that you face something that in the final analysis is unknowable and that you have to establish a relationship with it regardless of your inability to perceive or even withstand perceiving the whole. Okay, is there a...
So we're getting from the chat, JBP is a fraud and JBP is a liberal. Liberal, yes, in the classical English sense, definitely. Probably even more than that, right? And probably in a Canadian, more modern sense, if we're being honest. Probably true. Probably just in the conservative space because he was thrust into being in the conservative space. He's someone who understands too much about psychology to be political. He understands too much that the personality traits that are largely hereditary inform our political opinions to be extremely political. You would think he brands himself more as a philosopher than a politics guy. If you mean he's a fraud in that sense, I would agree. And I guess he is a liberal. His hairline is also on the way out. Oh, we're getting into people's definition of gods here. Dope. I asked you guys to define God and I totally forgot about it. All right. God is the all. I would agree. Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah, that's the exact definition I would use. Aristotle would say first cause, prime cause, unmoved mover, Jehovah and Jehovah only, and not any of the other ones. By Jehovah, do you mean Yahweh? That's the question I would ask you. I guess not, right? You're talking about Jupiter? Fascinating. Interesting. Let me know. Yeah, he should shave it off and just fully take backs. I completely fucking agree. The Ein Sof. It's weird that you would use a Hebrew Kabbalistic term in your defining of God. Maybe you want to call in later and explain to me about that a little bit. There is one God, one God. Alhamdulillah, maybe. Yeah, okay. It's interesting getting you guys like ideas of what God is actually. The uncreated person. Okay, interesting. Yeah, that's a great classical definition. Now, for some people, it's not enough. For some people, it has to be this. Father, Son, and Holy Spirit came, died on the cross, rose again, right? There, for some people, it's a little bit more. For those people, yeah, I have to concede, JBP is certainly not a Christian, right? If your God is a triune God, then maybe not. He's not on record talking about that. If God is true, yeah, I agree. I think it's a horrific argument. But it's the argument, actually, that Humean triangle, the Scottish triangle that I was talking about before, is the argument that most of atheism rests on. If you really boil down all of the arguments to JBP's statements in this, I bet they all basically come down to if God real, why bad thing happened. I can pretty much guarantee it. Yeah, but you're using God small g, and I hope correctly, because we're talking about capital G here. Nah, man, when we're talking about God. What's Coco saying? If God is all good and can't make mistakes. You guys are going to get my channel nuked, I swear to God. Yeah, right. Okay, now we're in this whole fucking thing about what we think God is. But this is the whole thing, right? When atheists reject God, I do think many of them have this very cartoony man in the sky, father on a cloud, authoritarian, judgmental overparent who's watching you masturbate, draconian idea of what God is. And I think they're rejecting that. And then there's another set of atheists, I would consider them to be like stronger atheists in their position, who have actually thought through things like the cosmological argument and the ontological argument, and they've come to whatever conclusions, decided that they're still atheists. Most atheists fall into the former category. And it's kind of funny because this whole first claim, JBP arguing with this guy, basically boils down to that. The guy he's arguing with has a really reductive view of Christians and what Christians believe.
A problem with that?
I mean, the problem is that when we look at, famously, when you've been asked, do you believe in God? The question becomes, what do we mean by God? And in the Bible, it's not even clear the biblical authors know what God is, because Yahweh has historically emerged from an early storm god, a deity that doesn't exhaust the category of deity, and that has changed over the Old Testament. Does God have physicality? Does God not have physicality? It seems like, yes, if you define religion.
So I have to say, I'm going to have to just interject at this point and say, look, the idea of the unmoved mover, the idea of the one God, the idea that sort of becomes Abrahamism is Greek, if not Egyptian in origin, and does not start with the Jews, who were, back in ancient Greek times, basically polytheists. Yahweh arises as chief God out of a pantheon of God, of the Elohim, the many gods. And so, yeah, in a weird way, the idea of one God is actually a lot more like European, weirdly.
Religion to mean anybody that has an aim, anybody that looks at the unknown, anybody who wants to go from chaos to order is inherently religious, then yes. But also in the same way, I could define atheist as somebody who doesn't dogmatically believe in a religion, or somebody who doesn't regularly attend religious services or belong to a denomination. To help especially the audience kind of like boil this down, there was a lot of words there. That the central claim is that we exist somewhere between the finite and the infinite.
A central claim.
A central claim is that we exist somewhere between the finite and the infinite.
No, I said that we were
brutal. See, he has so much money now. He has so much money now and so much recognition and so much fame. I think you got to ask deeper questions about what's going on with JBP, because it can't be money. He doesn't need another $100,000 in his bank account. You know how many books this guy has sold? Something's happening here. I don't know if they have something on him. Okay, guys. You know the recent Heil Hitler song by Kanye West wasn't really about Hitler at all. Do you know that? Do you know the recent Heil Hitler song by Kanye West was really just about Kanye West admitting that he has a cuckold fetish and that he enjoys watching his girlfriends and sexual partners have sex with other men? That's what they had on Kanye. Guys, if they can't fly you out to one of their little private islands and make you have sex with a 14-year-old and then film it so they can use it for blackmail later, then they're going to find out the most diabolical shit about you and use it against you. The only thing you can do in that strategy is double down and be like, yes, I am a cuck. I like when people fuck on my bitch. As a lyric in a song, followed up by the chorus, Hail Hitler, nigger. Like, are you fucking sick? But all of a sudden, the spell that they had him under, the entrapment blackmail spell of like, you better do what we say, you better take the pills, you better attend this workshop, you better promote BLM. All of a sudden, we'll tell everyone about the sex parties, we'll tell everyone about it. All of a sudden, it's gone. All the power is gone. All the mind control is gone. That song had very little to do with Hitler and absolutely everything to do with Kanye freeing himself from Jewish mind spells. It's a long story. All right, I don't want to go into it too deeply. But the point I'm making is, what do you think they've got on JBP? What do you think they have on Jordan B. Peterson? It can't be nothing, right? My thinking is that they have something dark and insidious, some leverage. A hell of a lot worse than whatever pornography Kanye West is watching or whatever sex parties Kanye West is going to. I'm telling you that. I don't know. I could be wrong. That's my speculation. I don't think money's it. I don't think this guy does anything for money. It's something, but I don't think it's money, dude.
Finite, and we had to establish a relationship with the infinite.
Yeah, then in that case, then we're all religious, but then I can do the same thing and define one particular element of atheism. It seems like we both have a reductive view of what the other side looks like, to the point where a conversation seems incoherent, and not just incoherent, but not in the way that the average Christian understands Christianity to be.
Do you have a problem with...
Pause there. Sorry, you've been voted out by the majority.
I'm sorry. I didn't realize we were bringing democracy into this. What the fuck? So they just have to leave when the mob decides that, oh, I hate this. I hate everything about this.
Monday CRM has the best AI
not
features in
even,
the
not
game.
even. Just when I thought it couldn't get worse, it's worse. It's like
Hey, how's it going? Nice to meet you.
oh shit, they run into the center of the circle. Oh wow. Okay.
David,
good to see you.
tell me everything that you know about the Polynesian deity Lono, L-O-N-O.
I don't know anything about the Polynesian deity Lono.
So you're rejecting something.
No, hold on a second. What you're saying is Jordan Peterson doesn't have the fear factor a lot of Christians have, where they believe bowing and worshiping is what the church, God wants of them. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You can acknowledge that the Christian framework is good and leads to a good society without having to be that dogmatic like yourself. You can go around and like uphold the tenets, the central tenets of Christianity, and live as a good, Christian life. But then you like the trivialities of the small sins that might derail most Christians. Yeah, I can't imagine him worrying about them. I could be wrong.
Thing without knowledge of what you're rejecting.
I'm not.
This is a dope argument, by the way, from the atheist guy here. He's saying, "What do you know about the Polynesian deity Lono or Lobo or whatever the fuck?" It's a I would say genius argument. Let's see how Peterson responds to it. It's a good argument. It is a solid argument.
Not rejecting it. No more than I'm rejecting.
Do you believe in Lono?
I don't know anything.
Do you
about.
believe in Lono? Do you believe that he is a deity that exists in the world, exists in the universe, that exists in the existence of everything? Do you believe that Lono?
I'll answer that question once you answer my question, which is.
We're only on the second guy, and we've given him one right. He gets one fair pass of like, what do you mean by X, to get himself out of it. Bro, you couldn't deny the existence of Lono? Okay, all right, here we go. All right.
Which is, do I reject everything that I'm ignorant of? Because that's your presupposition that undergirds your argument, unless you.
Okay. Look, the worst part is I totally get what he's saying here, right? The Romans say Jupiter, the Greeks say Zeus. Maybe a Roman meets a Greek and says, you reject Jupiter. And what Peterson is saying is, I don't know the thing. I'm ignorant of the thing. So I can't truthfully reject it or embrace it. Perhaps Lono embodies some attribute of my God. Perhaps there is some crossover. This will be infuriating to both sides, right? Trying to take this kind of approach of like, well, hold on a second. He's just not wanting to concede any ground. And what it seems like is stupid, frankly, right? If you just want to have a basic conversation where we all kind of know what we mean by God, we all kind of know what we mean by believe. If you think you're going to a round table where it's just you, 19 other atheists, and one Christian, this would be annoying as fuck. And if you're a Christian hoping to have your beliefs represented, good luck. Because let's be honest, a real diehard Christian will be like, no, I don't believe in Lono, and I'll burn you at the stake if you do.
You can prove that that's valid, then there's no point.
My question is quite simple.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean it's formulated accurately.
Do you believe that Lono exists?
Bro, Coco, are you fucking trying to trigger me? I have kept my anger issues under so much control, but you are just actually trying to trigger me this evening. What part of the number 100 are you guys struggling with? What Peter Dinklage and 99 of his homies would fuck up a gorilla. Do you understand? Oh my God, I can't even believe. You understand that the women who think that they're safer in the woods with the bear are less dumb than you for asking this question. 100 dwarves, Coco. I want to see you in an arena against 100 dwarves. Who the fuck are you? What are you fucking what? 100. I know this is a troll. I know this is a fucking troll. I'm moving on.
No. I'm not going to answer that question for the reasons I just described. You already insisted that if I reject something if I'm ignorant
now,
of something.
To be fair, now the odds start shifting in the gorilla. Gorilla's favor. To be fair, didn't see that one coming.
I reject it. Do you think that everyone in the world has to know everything simultaneously for that to be valid and true?
I think in order for your argument to be true, in order for it to be true that we atheists don't understand what we're rejecting, then you need to also apply that to yourself and to Christians and to Muslims and to any other person on this earth, where if you don't understand what you're rejecting the belief in, then you can't reject the belief in it. That's the implication of your claim.
I didn't say that I rejected the belief in Lono. I said
Bro. Christian, by the way. Christian, by the way, he just also accepts the belief. Why are we here? Like, what is the meaning of existence? Like, really, bro?
I don't know who Lono.
Yeah, at this point, I would start putting my flag up as well. At this point, it's getting out of hand. Lono.
Who Lono was. I didn't say anything about rejecting.
That's because I've asked you several times and you haven't. But let me get to my even greater point.
Mm-hmm.
You're saying atheists don't understand what religion is or what God is in order to be able to reject it fully or completely. We have someone over here who studied it in their own way. I've studied religion. I have a degree in religious studies, specialty in Christianity and Mediterranean.
Now his arguments become terrible, right? He was good. It was a strong argument, opening argument from the atheist. What do you know about Lono? Let's talk about it. He's completely deteriorated off the rails here. Oh, my friend over there is a Catholic priest, and I also have a degree in religion. Oh, I'm sorry, bro. I'm sorry, fucking Reddit homie. I didn't realize that a degree in religious studies was knowledge of the divine. I'm sorry, my bad. I didn't realize when you picked up that PhD from wherever the fuck university, that suddenly gave you intimate and detailed knowledge of God. So that you may be able to speak on it all of a sudden. That's crazy. That's wild. Oh, my friend over there, he trained to be a priest for 5 years. Oh, well, fuck it. I mean, he's practically Jesus then, isn't he? I mean, what the fuck?
Mediterranean traditions.
Peterson's point here is very valid. You can't, it's not that you can't, I wouldn't have phrased it the way he did, but the crux of what he's saying is essentially true, right? It's not that you can't reject something if you're ignorant of it. That's not true. We do that every day. Every day, you don't have to fucking take heroin to know that heroin's fucking dodgy and going to fuck you up and you shouldn't take heroin, right? We don't live our lives like that. But there is something real and true at the crux of what he's saying, in that, like, when someone becomes an atheist, it is a religion unto itself, where they define God basically however they want, by whatever arbitrary straw man they want that they don't like. They cherry pick the bits about religion that they don't like. They put that up as a kind of like poster of what God is, and then they attack that. I think the central claim that Peterson's making is still yet to be challenged well by, I mean, we've only had two guys. But.
And further than that, beyond me, Pew Research studies suggest that atheists and agnostics actually know more about religion and about religious stories, the foundational principles, than believers.
That's because they're more religious than they think they are.
Banger.
Okay.
Banger. No, see, banger. And by the way, it's not all. There is a midway atheist that just decides that God is not real. It's all fairy tales. I read that all when I was 14. I made that decision. I decided, fine, right? But then there is another deeper, more inquiring atheist. If you guys ever want an example of the kind of person I'm talking about, and I don't think it's a coincidence that this guy has just come up to 1 million followers on this platform, right, is Cosmic Skeptic, aka Alex O'Connor. This is a guy who's like a really, really good philosopher, if you like, for a young man who's like, he has a great channel with lots of interesting content on it, and who recently debated Peterson. I don't know, maybe you guys won't know him by name, but you'll know him by face. This guy, you seen this guy before? Alex O'Connor, British guy, philosopher, atheist. What I would consider to be a good atheist. Earnest, moral, forthright, no games and trickery and gotchas, genuinely wants to know about God and about Christ and about religion, knows way more about the New Testament than your average Christian, and doesn't do this atheist thing and like, oh, I want to destroy your life, I want to destroy your religion, I want to crumble your belief system in front of, your eyes and prove to you that I'm the superior intellectual. He's genuinely coming from a place where he seems curious and he wants to understand. So you guys should check out Alex O'Connor if that kind of thing appeals to you. I understand a lot of you are Christians, you don't want to follow an atheist channel, but I'm using that example of like, there are some atheists who are genuinely good people. Hard for us to comprehend, I know, in such a polarized fucking world, but
they're concerned with deep matters, and one of the defining characteristics of someone who's oriented in religious direction is that they're concerned with deep matters.
Okay.
In fact, it's virtually definition.
Right, but they also have to identify with a religious tradition and accept the foundational stories that go along with
that would mean more that they're sectarian than that they're religious. And most people, for example, in the United States, deny that they're religious, but accept that they're spiritual.
Pause there. You've been voted.
Look, Religious. I want to see relating to or believing in religion, and then obviously how is religion defined very loosely as a wide range of socio-cultural systems. Look, for me, religion is rules. For me, religio in the Latin, meaning codes, meaning rules, meaning you have to follow a specific script. I don't like Peterson's definition there, although he is, of course, right that most people consider themselves to be Christian spiritual these days and not religious. That's just a fact.
Voted out by the majority.
Democracy in action there.
Aha! Hi, nice to meet you.
How are you doing?
Good, how
What's
are you?
your name?
I'm Greg. Nice to meet you.
Greg.
Okay, so I feel like you're getting at this idea of polysemy, where we have multiple related meanings for a word, right? Like, for example, a famous painting can be emotionally moving in that it changes my emotional state. And when I was on the highway coming here to the studio, I was physically moving. I was changing my position. If I said, I believe the Mona Lisa is very moving, and you said, you don't really understand what you're saying, it's nailed to the wall, I would say that you're the one who doesn't understand what I'm saying, not the other way around. And the way that relates to this is there are many concepts of God, and I'll admit I find a lot of what you say about that interesting. I'm familiar with it. The idea of this kind of Jungian hierarchical thing, or
right. See, this is our first, guys. I'll be real. This is our first smart atheist. This is our first above 120 IQ atheist who's actually meeting Peterson on his level. He's saying, yeah, cool. If you want to define God in this like loose Jungian, it's the universe man sense way, okay, but that's not what I'm doing. I'm coming here to ask you if you're a Christian. I'm coming here to ask you about your dogma and your church and your history and your this kind of stuff. I've got my critiques. I'm holding my little black notepad here full of devastating critiques on Christianity. I just want to make sure you are a Christian, aren't you? Now would be the time for Jordan to step up, right?
As a metaphor or a symbol, or the kind of, atheist, materialist, literalist idea.
See, this is an atheist interpretation of Jung, that when Jung says archetype, oh, he means a symbol. Oh, he means an idea. Oh, he means, no, he fucking doesn't. Psychology, psyche in Greek does not just mean mind, it also means spirit. Jung was a guy who used to stay up late at night reading horoscopes. Okay, he was a mystic, a Swiss mystic. He did not believe, like, of course, again, if you're an atheist and you pick up Jung, he's just going to use a word like archetype. You're just going to fit that into your nice little atheist worldview and go about your day, right? But in Jung actually is the potential to break your brain when you think about, well, what the fuck is an archetype and where does it come from? Is the consciousness in my head actually me, or does it come from somewhere else? All of this is in Jung, right? And it's this guy, I really like the way he opened that question. He's proved to me very quickly that he has a very atheist interpretation of Jung.
Yeah, of a agentic, omnipotent, omniscient being that intervenes in reality, right? So when I'm saying that I reject the concept of God, I'm aware of these other definitions of God. But
okay, fair. Still lame, but fair.
I think that when we use words, we tend to only imply one meaning at a time. So the same way that I would say the Mona Lisa is moving emotionally, but I would not say it's moving physically. I would say I reject.
Dude, the real red pill is that Socrates probably didn't exist, right? If you really follow that to his way, Plato told so many lies, and Plato was such a good liar. Plato even defended, if you read the Republic, he defends the use of the noble lie to such an extent that I'm questioning if Socrates was actually a real guy. Solon probably was in the way he writes it, but I don't even know if Socrates was. And the idea of the Platonic, actually it comes later with Aristotle. By the time you get to Aristotle, it's codified as like a first cause, as a prime mover. It's better than whatever the fuck I think I know what you're referencing here when you say it's on the back of a giant like creature. I think I know what you're saying, but yeah, that's not what he's getting at.
Reject the concept of God in this very literal way. But
what literal way?
The way that God is this omniscient, omnipotent, agentic, supernatural being that sent his son down and has, caused miracles and all these things like that. The idea of God is
Do you think that there's an underlying unity of things?
Could you explain that question?
Well, scientists, for example.
Look, two things can be true at once, right? Someone can be a useful idiot for somebody else's schemes. Do you really think there's a room with a bunch of Jewish bankers in it, right? Where like, do you really think that like Larry Fink is sitting in a room with a bunch of like BlackRock executives, and they're like, "Should we put Jordan P? Yeah, let's get Jordan Peterson on Jubilee. That'll really get the goys stirred up." Like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, this is just two things can be true at once. He could be a useful tool for some very powerful, very nefarious people, and actually believe what he believes. Right? It's not that all these things are just endless. It's all just pressure release valves. It's my life is basically the Truman Show, and a bunch of Jewish people tell me where to look, and I'm like a puppet on their strings. Like, okay, bro, like I'm just fucking tapped, but whatever.
People believe that science unifies in a comprehensive theory. Do you? Yes, no, or that there are multiple competing truths? Those are the options. Either things unify, or there are multiple competing truths.
I think that I know that, for example, like in physics, people are looking for like a theory of everything.
And why do you think they're doing that?
It's interesting. It's helpful.
But they also believe that there's an underlying unity to things.
In a sense, yeah. Like, I mean, like the material world and time and space are probably governed by universal laws and principles.
Partly that, yes, yes. But that the same thing might extend to a broader domain that would include imagination and value.
Could you help me connect that to the prompt?
Well, I'm trying to define God, the God that I don't think atheists do a very good job of defining. Here's another question for you. What do you think guides you in your determination of whether or not what you're saying to me is true?
Can we go back? Can we stay on what we were talking about?
We are.
Okay.
Yeah,
You're just uncomfortable with the question.
He is. No, he is. No, this is good. Look, say what you want about JBP, but he's pretty fucking clear there. Let's wheel it up. Let's wheel it up. Let's wheel it up.
What do you think guides you in your determination of
what is it that guides you in your determination of what you think is true, right? It's a very fucking deep question. The guy sits down at the table and he's like, well, I've read Jung and I understand if God is an archetype, that's one thing, but I'm asking you about the Christian God. And Peterson's like, hold up there, buddy. Before you can even ask a question, let's talk about your value hierarchy and let's talk about how you even come to decide that you think a thing is true. Like, well, what are you doing to what Peterson is basically implying is if there's no God, if there's no good, if there's no hierarchy of values innately, what on earth are you using, right? You're just making up your own hierarchy then, aren't you? That's the underlying implication here. It's going to go over a lot of people's heads, obviously, but we're finally getting into something decent here.
of whether or not what you're saying to me is true?
Can we go back? Can we stay on what we were talking about?
We are.
Okay.
You're just uncomfortable with the question.
No, I feel like you're just kind of throwing different spaghetti at the wall.
I'm not.
Okay.
I asked you a very
Look at the smug cunt in the middle, right? Right above where it says 420, hashtag blaze it. See the smug dipshit in the middle? They are insufferable, obnoxious assholes for the most part, right? The guy who's currently, the chubby guy who's currently in the hot seat, I think he's fine. But just around the room, I'm getting the aura of just smug cuntiness coming off, this wafting off of all these people.
Specific question. What is it that you think guides you when you're talking to me to help you determine whether what you say is true?
Logic, memory, reasoning.
Okay, now I hate to be that little kid, right? At the back of the class. Why, miss? Yeah, but why though? Yeah, but why? But the earth is round. But why? But why? But why? But why? But where does your logic and your reason come from? We're just back to square one. We're just back to square one, aren't we?
Sensory information.
How do you distinguish?
Imagine that. Imagine that. What's your worldview based on? Sensory information, largely. Somebody give this guy some fucking hallucinogenic mushrooms quickly. Let me tell you how reliable your sense information is, bro.
That from being governed by something that's false.
An interesting question.
How do you know the difference when you speak between what's true and what's false? So you could imagine
infer, right? I can infer. I can.
From what principles?
So, and what are you getting at?
I'm getting at the fact that your conscience guides you. Is that reasonable?
Boom, right? Because implicit underneath all of this stacked little inferences that Peterson has been making is the idea of like, what are you, right? How do you build that value system? Because innate within you, inside you, is some kind of understanding, some kind of voice in the back of your head that tells you right from wrong, some kind of conscience linked to your consciousness. And this is how Peterson, this is how the Gnostic, broadly speaking in the modern day, defines God, right? the atheists here starting to understand a little bit.
Conscious is defined by my empathy and my reason are my foundational.
Define it any way you want.
Okay, so that's how I'm defining my conscience. Is my, my conscience is my sense of
right. The inner monologue in your head that talks to you all day and all night and constantly has a comment on everything that happens. It's just a combination of your empathy and your reason. It's just neural byproduct. It's just a neural byproduct. Just an activity, empathy, receptors. Like the fuck.
Of
right
and wrong. Yeah, exactly.
Yes. Where does that come from?
I would say that comes from an evolved capacity to empathize and a recognition of the benefits of engaging with and nurturing.
Listen to what he's saying. Comes from an evolved capacity to empathize and a recognition. I can't even. It's like
in that capacity, and then that empathy is constrained and guided by reason, right? Like, for example, I am driving down the highway. There's a kitten in the road. I'm going to empathetically feel, oh my God, I want to save the kitten, but then reasonably, like, I'm going to get hit by a car.
Anybody who's ever seen a kitten in a box on the side of the road knows that you pull over the car pretty much unconsciously. Usually you'll be staring at a kitten. Usually you'll be standing over a box with a kitten in it, like, oh fuck, did it's not so simple as, oh yeah, my empathy is activated and then my reason is activated and then I pull over the car. I mean, maybe it is for some people. Maybe it genuinely is for some people. Maybe some people are non-player characters, because fuck me. I mean, some people don't even have inner monologues, apparently. Let me know in the chat if you don't have an inner monologue. I'm fascinated.
Right, so that's sort of the process through which I make ethical decisions.
Okay, how do you
constrained by reason?
Do you think that people can differ in their
much worse, Michelle? Psychologically, spiritually, like for society, much worse. Like actually pimping your wife out for other men to have sex, much worse. No, I haven't, but please post the link in the chat if you can. Like, that's so good.
Or response to something.
I bet Jared Taylor mods him.
Is there a mediating principle that can tell you one person who's empathic and another person who's empathic that disagree, who's correct?
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I think that's where we'd have to, talk it out, right? Mm-hmm. We do that in real life all the time when we have, whether that's a discussion with a friend about the right thing to do in a situation, whether that's a policy discussion about law, right? That's where we can converse with each other, think about things, explain our perspectives, and then kind of reach a conclusion, right? That I think that we do that all the time.
So Elijah, the prophet Elijah, defined God in the Old Testament as the voice of conscience within.
Okay.
That's a definition.
So you're saying by that definition of God, I guess, see, this kind of goes back to where I'm saying initially.
I'm not defining it. Elijah defined it.
Okay, so as Elijah defines God.
It's defined that way in Jonah too.
Okay, so as
Cardinal Newman also defined it that way.
As I'm sure you know many people who defined it that way. And
listen,
it's impressive. You're a very knowledgeable person.
Check out Alex O'Connor's channel. I don't think Alex O'Connor is an atheist. I would say he's a theist. I would say he's got a lot of God in him. I would say that's what I would say. But of course, he calls himself an atheist. So, and we might have to wait until he's on his deathbed and he takes his Catholic last rites for me to be proven correct. But I think he is technically atheist and moral. I know that's hard for a lot of you that nuance, man.
I'm not trying to be impressive. I'm just pointing out to you how God is defined in the Old Testament.
All right. So to respond to that, I do think there are lots of interesting ways to define God.
What for all how you think he's not actually an atheist? Are you joking? This sounds amazing. Like, please tell me more. Like, what are you saying?
Back to my
then how do we specify what we're arguing about?
We use context clues, or we again, it goes back to my example of the Mona Lisa.
I'm defining God as conscience.
Okay. So that's interesting.
My answer to this question, mate, is depends what's on the PDF. All right. If it's naked photos of 11-year-olds, I'm totally okay with it. I'm totally okay with people going to prison for life. I think you mean political pamphlets or something, right? In which case I'm fucking disgusted by it, and this country hasn't had free speech for a long time. It is my answer.
But then you're kind of expanding the meaning of God.
No, I'm not. That's how it's defined in the Old Testament.
Okay, so
in Elijah and in Jonah.
Sure. So whoever. So
it's not whoever. Elijah is one of the.
It shouldn't blow your mind that they were friends. They both had a lot in common. If you think about it, it shouldn't.
Old Testament prophets. Right? He's equal in stature to Moses.
Okay.
So it's not arbitrary.
All right. So that is interesting. but it's not relevant to the context with which I am using the term God.
It's directly relevant. Atheists reject God, but they don't
Right, but
understand what they're rejecting. You accept conscience as a guide, and consciousness.
Right, because unless this guy can say, even if this guy says, well, consciousness is just some evolved evolutionary byproduct of my reason clashing with my empathy, fine. Why follow it then? Why stop at the side of the road to pick up the kitten? Why not just run over the next woman who's crossing the road with a shopping cart? Why listen to the little voice in your head? Why give it value? It's a legit question, and it's a profound question. And as far as I can tell, the guy is floundering here trying to answer it, because the moment you concede that consciousness exists, and the moment you accept Peterson's premise that consciousness is God, which is defined in the Old Testament, by the way, it's Isaiah who defines God like that, then, this guy's either going to have to refute that consciousness exists or say that consciousness is not what we think it is, and he's going to have to do that by using his own subjective consciousness. It's just kind of ironic.
This is one of the defining characteristics of God in the Old Testament.
I think you're being intellectually disingenuous.
In what way?
Because
I really don't. Now, guys, let me know if you think so, but I really don't think he is being intellectually disingenuous at all.
I asked you if you believe that conscience guided you.
You just asked me a question, and then you stopped me from answering it. In this setting, you understand the way I am using the term God and belief.
Not in the least. I don't understand how you're using it in the least. That's why I'm trying to define it. My definition of God as conscience is a lot more precise and oriented than your definition of the God that you hypothetically disbelieve in.
It's irrelevant to the fault lines of this debate.
How is it irrelevant?
Because in common parlance, when we're talking about atheists, God, belief, not belief,
I don't care about common parlance. I'm trying to get to something fun.
Yeah, look, if his thing had been like, commonly speaking, when atheist, he didn't say that. He's just fundamentally, like, his claim is, look, 3 people up now, 3 people down now, to be honest. The claim is atheists reject God, but they don't know what they're rejecting. Claim holds.
It's fundamental.
I think your point is irrelevant to the way that people tend to use these words. Your point that there are these polysemous
I didn't make
ideas
that
of God.
point. You did.
I
made a specific point that God
That's an own, by the way. That's an own, like.
Associated with conscience.
I just feel like you kind of retreat into this semantic fog.
I'm not retreating at all. I'm advancing, sir. You are retreating.
All right. Well, it was very nice to meet you. I appreciate the conversation.
Yeah. It's very brave of you to do this.
Thank you.
One night after staying back.
Okay, all right. Now, there's clearly something at the start. You saw the clip at the start of this, right? Of the extremely obnoxious, smarmy guy telling Jordan Peterson, well, you're nothing. We're not quite there yet. This seems relatively respectful and well-meaning. I think if the whole thing was like this all the way through, this wouldn't have been the viral thing that it was this week.
Surrounded is now a podcast.
Available. God, it's a podcast now, guys.
Wherever you listen. Search Surrounded, plug in, and stay part of the conversation. Anywhere, anytime.
My next claim. Claim is that morality and purpose cannot be found within science.
What is up, Mr. Canada?
How you doing, man?
I'm doing great.
What's
How are
your
you?
name?
Brian. I think it's interesting that you said that morality and purpose can't be found in science. Actually,
No, within science.
sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Purpose, I actually grant you, because purpose is subjective, right? Unless you want to boil it down to the purpose.
This might be the most dope comment anyone's ever left on this channel. I'm going to leave it up for a bit. Let it all sink in. That's so real.
purpose of life is just to procreate, right? Sure, whatever. Morality is actually something that we do see. We actually have examples of Neanderthals and older individuals found in the tribe, missing an arm, missing teeth, still alive somehow in his 40s, 50s, right? Typically, you're a Neanderthal, you can't eat, you can't hunt, you die, right? But we know that members of the tribe were taking care of him, right? So we know that at some level, early in our evolutionary history, we actually developed altruism. We have examples of chimpanzees who actually have a basic understanding of fairness, right? If you give a chimpanzee 2 grapes, right, and his buddy gets 3, right? He actually freaks out, right? But you give both chimps 3 grapes and they're good. We have examples of parrots.
Except for the greedy chimps.
Except for the greedy chimps.
They want 4 grapes.
They want 4 grapes. You know, those do exist, right?
He did not just call that black man a greedy chimp, did he? What the?
But we have similar examples where we do animal tests, right? And
so morality is intrinsic.
I think
so. It precedes.
Okay, let me just remind myself of the second claim.
Sure. Purpose, I actually grant you.
Surrounded is now a podcast.
Sure, whatever. Morality is actually something that we do see. We actually have examples of Neanderthals and older individuals found in the tribe, missing an arm, missing teeth, still alive somehow in his 40s.
Okay, so the claim is that morality and purpose cannot be found within science. I think you can explain the how of morality quite well using science. But yeah, the where and the why and all the other W's around science, around morality, you can't explain with science.
50s, right? Typically.
That's purpose is a whole different ballgame.
You're a Neanderthal, you can't eat, you can't hunt, you die, right? But we know that members of the tribe were taking care of him, right? So we know that at some level, early in our evolutionary history, we actually developed altruism. We have examples of chimpanzees who actually have a basic understanding of fairness, right? If you give a chimpanzee 2 grapes, right, and his buddy gets 3, right? He actually freaks out, right? But you give both chimps 3 grapes and they're good. We have examples of parrots.
Except for the greedy chimps.
Except for the greedy chimps.
They want 4 grapes.
They want 4 grapes. You know, those do exist, right? But we have similar examples where we do animal tests, right? And
so morality is intrinsic.
I think.
So it precedes science.
I think that actually
right?
A better way to define it would be that social animals, which we are, right, require some level of morality.
Yeah, absolutely, man. My DMs are open, no homo. What's my take on? I've said it before, but you know, there's 2 sides to magic. There's what we'd call a masculine side, that is science, and then there is a feminine side that is art, and there is religion, and there is psychology to an extent. Psychology, I guess, is our first attempt to bridge the masculine and the feminine sides of science. Of magic together. But yeah, magic is science, really. I don't make a distinction. I know that annoys the fuck out of a lot of you. I don't care.
Or
into what? I'm not disagreeing.
Sure.
Why do they require that?
Because it's the only way that social groups can actually survive, right?
That's my point with regards to science. Thank you very much.
Is that true? This is a very black pill take here that this Viking gentleman has left in the chat. Altruism only exists in a mother towards her genetic offspring. Ooh, that's kind of a little bit that's a little bit too dark for me. Only person who's ever going to love you is your mom. No, because there's all those kind of there's examples of people sacrificing themselves for the group, isn't there? There's examples of people sacrificing themselves for their broader kin, which you can argue is for their broader genetics, sure, but there's still so many examples throughout history of, like, you know, people being altruistic towards each other when they're not. So I don't know if you're just being black-pilled on that, but talk more. Let me know more. How's your relationship with your mother?
Is that
precisely the point that you just made, that science has to exist within a moral framework that isn't in itself scientific?
How's that not scientific?
Well, because it's not derived from the scientific process, as you just indicated.
By pointing from the scientific process.
Well,
it's the fact that
hang on a second.
We are social animals, and we need that to exist as a group.
I
right?
agree. But
sure.
You pointed to the morality of Neanderthals, to the morality of chimpanzees. They didn't derive that from science.
They don't need to. That's not how that works.
That's my point.
Science explains it.
So no, science doesn't explain morality.
It doesn't explain how social animals would need to be.
Well, that's a complicated question.
But we see it though.
Yeah, but explaining the evolution of morality and explaining morality itself aren't the same thing.
Okay, so you're asking why does this happen?
I ask Yes, that's
yeah. See, science explains the how. Science doesn't explain the why, the when, the what. The what really, it does. It kind of explains the what. It doesn't explain beyond the material, right? What function morality would have. But then again, from an atheist, you don't need one. From an atheist POV, you don't really need one. This is a pretty weak claim. I wouldn't have gone with anything like this. Morality and purpose cannot be found within science. It's like, ugh. Yeah, I agree, but I mean,
that's more accurate.
Because we're social animals.
Yeah, but there's more to it than that.
Is there?
Sure. For example, so we're moral animals that have a sense of the future.
Sure.
Okay, that makes us unique, and that structures our morality.
No, actually, there are other animals that can predict the future, or not predict
really.
the future. No, tigers. Actually, there was a tiger at the SF Zoo that killed somebody. And so
Hunting
actually,
animals.
No. Kids threw shit at the tiger. The tiger actually plotted its escape, and it found the kids.
I'm not saying that animals can't think.
Okay.
No, but they can perceive the future. That's what I'm saying.
You know what? First time democracy did the right thing and kicked. That was going absolutely fucking nowhere. I don't know if you noticed this, but sometimes when theists and atheists talk at each other, they talk over each other. They talk across each other. They're not even having the same conversation. That was a really good example of it. And yeah, at no point was Peterson saying that animals couldn't think. But
I'm saying.
Well, voted out by the majority.
Thank you, man.
Good man. Yeah.
Kind of patronizing, racist, liberal handshake of like, well done, you tried. Did you guys see that man there? He looked like a. I don't even want to say it. That's mean, but like, wow, that was.
Hey, Jordan Peterson, how you doing?
One of these days, there's going to be an accident, and a transgender person is going to run square into a big fat black lady, and all hell is going to break loose. That's a terrible design idea for the racing for the chair. Yeesh.
My name's Luke. Nice to meet you.
Good to see you, Luke.
So your claim that morality and purpose can only be found in science is a little shaky, because I think that your claim is really being framed to be morality and purpose can only be
Who is morality and what is her at?
Found in religion. Is that how you're kind of framing it?
I would say that the domain of religion is the domain of morality and purpose. Yes, exactly. Okay. And also that science is actually structured, at least in part technically, to eliminate such considerations from its purview a priori.
Okay.
Right? That's why we define science as value-free.
Mm-hmm.
But that has to be wrong, because scientists have to prioritize their attention towards something before they can even engage in observation.
Okay.
And that act of prioritization of attention is a value predicated act. And so I can continue. There's all sorts of things we have to assume about science before it can take place.
Okay, so what I'm specifically pointing out here is about religion in particular, since you yourself are a Christian, right?
That's, people debate about that, and I generally don't discuss it publicly.
Okay, I understand that. And me, myself.
Right, so we're finally getting into it. The atheist wants to draw up terms. He simply puts it to Peterson, you're a Christian, right? Peterson, we see our first reluctance. Now, do you guys honestly think that if this event that he had been invited to was titled 1 Christian versus 20 atheists, he would have gone, knowing that he wouldn't accept to being called a Christian? I don't think so, man. I think that part of it you can blame squarely on Jubilee, on these people down here. You don't get 10 million subscribers without being just utter clickbait trash, to be honest with you.
Me, myself, I am a former young earth creationist fundamentalist.
Oh, yeah.
So I have experience in this. I used to run a TikTok channel directed about apologetics about the Bible.
I mean, you can be a fucking fundamentalist, creationist, flat earther that believes that the earth is 6,000 years old, have made TikToks on the subject for 3 years, and you're qualified now. Now you convert to atheism, you can say, oh, I was an expert on religion, I used to make TikToks. Fuck.
Bible, specifically in this type of facet with morality, evolution and such, and going back and forth with that. So in the Bible, it talks a lot about slavery, right?
Yes.
Yes. So in that, it teaches you how to take care of a slave. Rather than saying slavery is wrong, I think it should say that.
It says that in the story of Moses.
It says slavery is incorrect. It says it's immoral.
That's why Moses leads his people away from slavery.
But why does the Bible predicate and tell people exactly how to take care of a slave? Isn't that immoral? Wouldn't you say that culturally we've evolved as a species, as he said earlier, about empathy?
Yeah, I would say that the reason we evolved, so to speak, away from slavery was because the West was founded on Judeo-Christian morality and the presumption that every person was made in the image of God. And so slavery itself became immoral, and that was established by Protestant Christians in the UK, who then convinced the UK government for 200 years to go to war on slavery.
And wouldn't you say that this is about the cultural evolution of humans in general, rather than just Christianity?
No, I think it's the flowering of the ideas that were embedded in the biblical texts across long spans of time.
I feel like this is just humans editing based on the cultural evolution.
What do you mean
morality.
by just?
Just?
Yeah, just humans.
Well, humans.
Editing.
Well, based on culture and history, right?
I can't believe it.
Get better.
Now he's starting to get on my nerves, right? Because now we just heard the sentence, what do you mean by just? And again, I know what he's getting at, but it's just like we're in the weeds now. We're in pure retardation. Like, is this content? Are you not entertained? Like, holy shit. Like, just somebody kill me. Like,
They did do it based on culture and history, but culture and history have their foundations too. So.
Well, yeah, but we're talking about slavery. So many people bolstered it based on the Bible. Based on the Bible. They looked at it and they justified it. And
this is such bullshit. Slavery was propped up using the Bible. The abolitionists who got demolished slavery used the Bible. The slaves themselves were singing Bible songs. Everybody read the fucking Bible. That's just retarded. Whatever the dominant cultural religious idea is, it's going to be used to justify and to persecute the biggest atrocities of all time. It's just so stupid.
In the United States and the Deep South, they justified slavery.
Yeah, but
based
the main thrust of Protestant thought in particular was stringently against slavery, and it was about the only movement in the history of the human race that had an anti-slavery direction.
Which was driven by humans and their understanding
that's one
of
way
morality.
Of looking. Well, it depends.
It's the same with women's suffrage. I mean, women's in the patriarchy.
What do you mean it was driven by humans? Humans drove slavery too.
Yes, exactly.
So there's no argument there. If slavery and anti-slavery were both driven by humans, what does your claim that they were driven by humans have to do with it?
Evolving morality based on the culture that within the society that they live in.
Okay, fine.
So with women's suffrage as well is a very similar topic in the Bible. There are denominations in Christianity, such as Pentecostal movement, which do bolster women to be pastors, right? Which I think that's a great thing to do. But most like to disregard
Where do you
women.
think the idea that human beings were sufficiently equal to all vote and not be slaves came from?
Humans.
Yeah, but so did the idea of slavery.
So did the idea of God.
Fine, but what's your point? Like, you're not making an argument. You're just saying all thoughts come from humans, regardless of the thoughts.
It's not driven by a higher power. It's driven on our experiences as humans, which is what is best for all people.
Is it driven by conscience?
It could be, which conscience is also something that has evolved over time. And I think that's something that does evolve in morality and empathy.
Okay, I don't understand the point that you're making.
My point is that God influenced slavery. People looked at the Bible and went, this is moral because God says so, just like women's suffrage.
There's lots
and just like homosexuality.
All human societies were slave owning. So you can't blame that on the Bible.
If humanity decided...
Oh, wait, address that first.
What,
all
about slavery?
Human societies were slavers. So you can't blame that on the Bible.
Well, you can say it bolstered it.
Well, not if you look at the broad sweep of history, because it was the Protestant Christians
based on their
UK,
interpretation of the Bible.
It was the Protestant Christians,
which evolves over time. Time.
Let's pause there. You've been voted out by the majority.
All right. Well, it was great talking with you,
nice
sir.
talking to you, too.
Thatcher's juicy apple cider uses sun-soaked apples that bask in the rays for days to make every sip burn.
Dr. Peterson.
Good to see you, man.
Pleasure.
What's your name?
Brian. So the first thing I would like to say is I would like to engage in this discussion in a symbiotic manner. I would not like to engage where there is one.
A symbiotic man. Now, this guy's trying to be symbiotic. All right, top comment. The way Jubilee changed the title from 1 Christian versus 20 atheists to Jordan Peterson versus 20 atheists after 4 hours is so funny. 85,000 likes. Like, oh God. The only way you can stomach looking at something like that as like just a shit comment with a shitload of just shit people agreeing. I probably agreed to that on my other account. I mean, I probably like that comment on my other account, whatever. The point is, it's just like, you know what it is? It's the groupthink. It's the groupthink I can't stand. It's the group, and even on my own side, I can't stand the groupthink. It's just, can we do another one but have Jordan Peterson surrounded by 20 Christians? I think. Can we do another one but have Jordan Peterson surrounded by 20 Christians? I think this would be equally interesting. Yeah, that is kind of funny. I mean, actually, it would. Having 20 dogmatic doctrinal Christians who really believe they shit about like versus Jordan Peterson would also be interesting. To confuse the enemy, you must first confuse yourself. I desperately need 1 Jordan Peterson versus 20 Oxford dictionaries, bro. This is like this is literally Reddit. Schrodinger's Christian. That's kind of funny. Alex O'Connor in the comments. Oh boy. See, this is very similar. This is very similar to the debate that Peterson had with Alex O'Connor, actually.
One clear winner and one clear loser. Emotions are activated and it ultimately comes about ego. So I'm just saying I'm really trying to understand your position, and I would just like you to really try to understand my position.
Deal.
Okay, sounds good. With that, if you're saying that morality and purpose cannot come from science, is the opposite of that true, that morality and purpose can only come from God?
That's a way of defining it, yes.
Okay.
That's right, that's good. So I would say that with regard to the first claim, say, atheists don't understand what they're rejecting, because I would say by definition, God is the unity upon which moral claims are based. That's a definition, right?
Okay, if there is a God, what is the purpose of life?
Well, in the Christian tradition, the purpose of life is to engage in voluntary, upward, self-sacrifice so that the kingdom of heaven can be established on earth.
Now, what is he on? How many benzodiazepines has he taken that the guy asked him, what is the meaning of life? And he said, in the Christian tradition, it's a sacrifice, a voluntary upward spiral. Just answer what you think the meaning of life is. If you're gonna not say I'm a Christian, don't answer the question by providing the Christian. Now I'm really struggling. Now I'm starting to think maybe it did say in the email, like, will you come and be the 1 Christian versus 20 atheists? I don't. If he does this a couple more times, he's gonna lose me, because he shouldn't be answering from a Christian perspective if he's not willing to say, I am a Christian, right?
So you're trying to make it to heaven and avoid hell.
Yes, that's a good way of thinking about it.
What is the purpose of heaven? Do you understand? Well, so here's the deal.
We can get into it's the opposite of endless suffering.
Black Barry, I can see your extremely negative, low vibrational comments in the chat. 1,000%. I will open the phones for you later once we've dealt with a few more of these claims. But yeah, absolutely. Call in stream.
And so should we not try to achieve infinite suffering on planet Earth? And if we can achieve infinite suffering on planet Earth without God, avoiding it, if we can do that without God, then does that defeat your claim?
Well, yeah, except that it doesn't. You circumvented my initial definition, because I said that by definition, God was the unified source of morality. And so if we engage in a moral exercise.
And when you're talking about morality, though, when you really reverse engineer it and you get it down to its root, you're a psychologist. Yeah. It really seems like it just has to deal with motivation. People are saying there is a God.
This is so easily fixed by changing the title to Theist versus 20 Atheists. The whole control, like, come on, we're 29 minutes into this, and is he like on the floor crying in a book? No, he's gone up against 5 guys, he's won against 3 of them. It's milquetoast, it's lukewarm, it's mid. It's got 114,000 upvotes. Oh my god, 5 million views, and it's just funny, right? What does everyone know? Everyone's just seen this 2-second soundbite of this kid owning Jordan Peterson. Jordan Peterson rage quitting. That's all they've seen. But actually, there's nothing here. This is basically a nothing burger. Like,
God, there
is more specific than that.
Well, so let me ask you this: so
wrecked. Like, ugh.
If there is a God and there is a moral code, and it doesn't come at your benefit, are you going to follow it?
It depends on how you define your benefit. If it's
going to come at your expense, would you still follow it? If God came down and said, "Here is my moral code, and you should follow it," but even if you follow it, you are still going to end up in hell, are you going to follow it?
Well, that was the question that was put to Job and to Christ, right?
Now that I use Monday Serve,
I don't know what to make. I don't know what to make of this. Let's see.
I'm answering your question. They were required to withstand trials that would break anyone and maintain their upward orientation regardless.
And they did that with the motivation of believing that this omnipotent, all-loving God would somehow turn it into a benefit. So they still did it solely for their benefit. So let's define. Yes, they did. Hang on. Let's define benefit. Like, if I did something for your sister, would that be to your benefit? Like, how are you defining your benefit? Do you mean one of your whims gratified now? Or do you mean you and everyone you love and know over some reasonable span of time? Like, so
what do you mean by
when you're talking about whims, I think you're talking about something that's more dopamine. When you're talking about morality, you're talking about something that's more serotonin and more ultimately satisfying. So you and I agree on a lot. I mean, when it comes to talking about how men should be...
Is this guy an atheist? This guy's not giving... okay.
Masculine and things of that nature. You and I are 100% in agreement. We just don't agree on the justification that God is the only thing that provides morality.
It's not a justification, it's a definition.
What's the difference then between a definition and a justification? I mean, it's ultimately psychologically the same thing.
Well, we have to define what we're talking about before we can just debate.
Okay, well, right? so here's my position.
I said that God, among other things.
I'm actually a non-theist. I'm not an atheist. I believe the human condition is one of uncertainty. And what that means is that I don't believe that you can conclude there is a God with certainty.
Okay, see, I knew it. I knew this guy was not going to come from a standard atheist, but he's got his own wacky fucking thing. Okay. So Jordan Peterson versus 19 atheists and a fucking weirdo, like, who just wasted everybody's time. Nobody's putting their red flags up for this because nobody understands what the fuck is being said here by this guy's got
in the same position. Now, with that, I don't care. I still wake up every day and I have motivation to be a moral person.
Define moral.
Moral, what I ought to do.
Okay, and how do you come to that conclusion?
What I ought to do, ultimately, it comes down to what not just benefits me, but what benefits the entire planet, what benefits the entire system. I think that your entire moral perspective comes from linear thinking. And when you look at the reality of the universe, it's actually more so holistic. So when you look at how Aristotle defined God, when he said that there had to be an unmoved moved or an uncaused cause, he was defining God from a linear perspective. And you do the same with morality, and you do the same with purpose.
How does my definition of morality? How does my definition of morality hypothetically differ from yours?
Because you're saying that there's something that exists in a vacuum, that it exists in and of itself, and nothing in the universe exists in a vacuum. Nothing exists in and of itself. It's a whole systems-based morality. It's a systems-based reality.
Is there a hierarchical structure?
What the quantum.
Is there a hierarchical structure? Are some things more important than others?
Of course they are.
Are some things, I think some things lead to more benefits than others.
Then by your own definition, some things are more important than others.
Yes.
Okay. What is
you just literally wasted 5 minutes of everyone's time. Thanks so much, dude. Whenever somebody says something like that, whenever somebody says like, oh no, I'm not an atheist, I'm a non-theist. It's like, oh, you're a special boy, huh? Like, you have your own fucking fuck off. Like, the fuck.
You've been voted out by the majority.
Mental.
How you doing?
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
I guess since you said morality and purpose cannot be found in science, it would just depend on like what you're referencing. If you're saying a description of your psychological preferences would be considered within science, sure. But I don't think that you have to say that it comes from science in order to be like an atheist. As an agnostic atheist, I don't know if God exists and I don't believe that a God exists. And the only ones that I would really reject would be like the all-knowing, all-powerful, all-good, perfect notion of God that plenty of Christians like prescribe themselves. So I guess
how is that relevant to this claim?
You're basing a position of morality and purpose in some like notion of God that
atheists always do this. They always do this. The actual claim, Peterson is completely correct. The actual claim has nothing to do with Christianity. It's a negative claim against science. And it's saying you can't derive morality or purpose, right? And by implication, meaning in your life from science alone. You need something more than that. And every single one of them wants to pin him down and be like, you're a Christian though, right? You're a Christian. Because in paragraph B, verse C of Isaiah, of the book of whatever the fuck, it actually says that it's like, no, debate the claim, you faggot. Debate the claim. The claim is that you cannot derive morality and purpose from religion. Like, but yet they have to be like, well, you're a Christian, aren't you? Because the Christian God, the Christian morality, the Christian, shut up.
That isn't the same type of notion of God that typical Christians would prescribe. Your notion of God is
what typical Christians?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, actually, at this point, for JBP to be getting a little bit riled up, it's like, I really need to know what the original title. I need to see the email, and we're never going to know. We're never going to actually see the email to his manager or whatever.
Typically, when I talk to Christians, they say that they believe in an all-knowing.
How about Cardinal Newman, who defined God as conscience? He was a major influence on all of Catholic social theory. How about that, Christian?
Sure. So do you believe in the all-knowing, all-powerful, all-good notion of God?
He just goes back again, because he's got this little tricky little argument that he's learned in philosophy class. And he's like, you have to believe in this God of the four omnis of the Nicene Creed, because if you do, then I can be like, ha, gotcha. And Jordan Peterson's just like, no, I'm not going to meet you there. I'm not going to meet you there. Like,
God.
What do you mean by believe?
Do you think it to be true?
That's the circular definition. What do you mean when you say you believe?
How is that circular?
Because you added no content to the answer by substituting the word true and believe.
I said you think it to be true.
All right. So if you believe something, you stake your life on it.
What do you mean by that?
You live for it and you die for it.
That's so fucking dramatic. All he had to say at this point is if you believe something, you live by it. You live by it. You follow it. You actually prioritize it. You value it, etc. That's all he had to say. But this grandiose thing of like, you live for it, you die for it. So, well, no. There are a lot of people who profess beliefs, who act in accordance with those beliefs every day, who, if you put a gun to their head, would not literally die for those beliefs. Many, many people, many good Christians would tell you that they're Muslim in a heartbeat if it means them and their family would not get murdered, right? So actually, at this point, Peterson is completely off the fucking rails. The argument is cogent, but because he's been just like, he's losing the plot with them trying to pigeonhole him as a Christian. Like, he's losing the fucking plot with it, and he's just snapping, and he's just being like, what do you mean by believe? Like,
that's what I mean by that. It isn't something that you say. It isn't something that's associated with logical consistency. It's not declarative. It's not propositional. It's not a figment of your imagination.
He's basically saying, take all your masturbatory philosophical jargon, your circle jerk. I don't know if you guys have realized it yet, but philosophy is literally just a game for 135 IQ people, systematize and categorize everything, but not explain anything at all. The entirety of philosophy is just footnotes on Plato. And this guy here is just like, he's basically saying to him, it's not descriptive, it's not declarative, it's not all of this philosophical jargon. He's like, it's what you actually do. It's like you live by it. But of course, in classic Peterson fashion, he's like, you die for it. You die for it. I'm surprised he's not crying at this point.
Imagination, it's the presupposition of your attention and your action. And you're either fragmented, in which case you worship multiple gods, or there's some unity at the bottom of it that makes you an unstoppable force.
Okay, so you're saying that you don't believe something if you wouldn't die for it?
Not really, no.
Okay.
that went over that kid's head. That I promise you, that kid did not understand a fucking word of what Peterson just said. Like he regurgitated back what he thought he heard, but I promise you, he didn't hear shit. Like, oh man, that's so fucking infuriating. You know what it reminds me of? Let me just send this to myself. It reminds me of this. I don't know if you ever saw this, but this was like a. Let's see. I'm just sending now. Let's see. This is just very, very. Hold on. Let's see if we stop sharing. Reminds me of this, TBH. Don't know why it's fucking. Let me try again. I mean, this is a real mode. This isn't even edited, right? Okay, I don't know why it's not letting me show you. They're fucking with my connection. They sent a psychic ray to destabilize my stream. But fuck it, I don't know. If you type in Jordan Peterson, Elon, I don't know what you would type in to get this, but there's this bit where he's just utterly mystified. Elon is sitting there drugged out of his head on ketamine, and Jordan is talking about the archetype of going to the moon or whatever. It's some of the funniest fucking shit. Why can't I get this to work? Damn it. Apologies, guys. We're having technical issues here on my end. I'll try one more time for you. It's like, talk about overhyping a clip. Damn. No, fuck it. All right.
So
how would you define belief? Something you say?
So I explain, like, I could believe it is the case that this pen exists, but if someone like threatened my life, right, I would lie in order to be able to save my life, right? Like, I think you would do that too. You wouldn't lie to save your life.
Don't be so sure.
You wouldn't lie to save your life?
How much do you know about me? I didn't lie to save my career. I didn't lie to save my clinical practice.
Would you lie to like save your children, your mom, your dad?
I don't think.
This is just getting stupid now. This is just getting retarded now. See, if he had said live by instead of die for it, we wouldn't be in this fucking mess. But
lying would save them.
Can there ever be a circumstance logically that lying could save someone?
Yeah, and if you're steeped in sin, you're likely to live in circumstances like that.
Okay, you're literally just waffling now. This is a strike 2 against JBP. I would say he's lost this skirmish with this kid here. This kid just seemed very, like, he didn't seem too bad, I guess, but he's just very entitled and just kind of like, he really wanted to pin him down the grid. And then Peterson just lost it. If you live a life of sin, you're likely to end up like that. I mean, what is he waffling about now?
That.
I'll give you an example. If you're like in like Nazi Germany, and it is the case that there's like Jewish people in your attic and you're trying to protect them, would you lie to like the Nazis?
I would have done everything I bloody well could, so I wouldn't be in that situation to begin with. It's a hypothetical, and it's not answerable.
Hypotheticals?
No, I can't answer a hypothetical like that because it's far.
See, just rude. Like, see the kid, he's like, so there's something about someone when they have bad aura, bad vibes, right? I know I'm talking like a crystal girl, but the kid on the left, on the right here, he has a demeanor about him. He's hungry for blood. He's like a shark. He senses the frustration, the weakness of the older gentleman. I think that's what annoys me about it. I think it's that these kids have no fucking respect for their elders, right? It's just like, it's snarky, it's demeaning, it's like, and look at him, he's so happy. He's fighting in his jaw here to contain the smug, self-satisfied smile. And yeah, Peterson's losing the plot. He's losing patience. You can't really blame him at this point. You know,
look. Don't play games.
I'm not playing games. I'm just asking if you ate it.
If you present,
you absolutely fucking are. I mean, it's just really, really silly. He answered your question. He didn't do a good job of answering your question, but he answered the fucking question. Like, you know, move on, keep it moving. You got 5 minutes to like.
Me with an intractable moral choice that's stripped of context, and you back me.
To be fair, it's Peterson's fault. It's Peterson's fault for thinking like, oh, easy dub, right? 20 college students, like Ben Shapiro and Charlie Kirk before me. I'll just go to a college campus, meet up with this production team from Jubilee and I'll own 20 libs real quick and I'll be back in time for lunch. Well, no, unfortunately, Jordan, mate, you know.
Me into a corner, you're playing game. I just told you I would do everything that I could to make sure that I'm never in that situation. By the time you've got there, you've made so many mistakes that there's nothing you can do that isn't a sin.
Being born in Nazi Germany and trying to protect people that you care about, like there could be a Jewish friend that you have and you want to protect them.
I think you should
have
just
them
give
in your
up on
attic.
that line of questioning.
Give up on just like trying to clarify your position? Because you don't like, are you like uncomfortable with me asking this question? It's just a basic.
Yeah, so just to clarify it for Jordan, and I really shouldn't even do this, but it's not being born in Nazi Germany. In his framework, it's being born in Nazi Germany and voting for Hitler and choosing not to leave and participating in et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's a lot. It's dumb. He should have simply said live by, but whatever.
It's a basic hypothetical. Like I could ask you.
It's just a basic hypothetical where you put Jews' lives at stake in Nazi Germany.
What are we, 36 minutes in? Godwin's law is already fully violated.
That's just a basic hypothetical.
Obviously, you would lie in that scenario to save their life, but you're like not trying to answer this question for some reason.
I just told you why.
Are you anti-fascist? Like, so you're
why
anti-fascist?
Why are you asking that?
I was just asking, just clarifying. But like, okay, again, you're not answering this hypothetical because you know it shows that you clearly would lie to save someone's life.
I'm answering it.
Bullshit. Danny Phil talk. Guys, this is the guy who owned JBP. This is the guy who owned JBP. This is the guy who had his smug W moment over JBP. Oh, this is fascinating. Are you blowing up on YouTube now? Do you have a channel? Do you have a channel that's blowing up? I'm kind of happy for you, bro. I think you're a smug cunt. We'll get to your bit later. But nice to see you. Thanks for popping by. I guess you're basking, right? It's like a lizard. You're still basking in your moment in your 15 minutes. So it's like the week is drawing to a close. The news cycle is so fast. You know, this is not Kathy Newman, buddy. This is not so what you're saying is. This is not something that anybody will remember 2 or 3 months from now. So I would say make hay while the sun shines and make lemonade of these lemons, buddy, because like genuinely it's enjoy it while you can, I guess. I mean, you did get the W. It's undeniably you got the W in terms of public opinion, and that's all that matters these days is the propaganda bullshit, right? Is the 10-second micro clip fucking edit. But yeah, sure. I mean, yeah, if you've got the email, I would like to see it. If you've got an email that's got JBP's management in the CC, or the BCC, I would like to see it. I don't believe you have such an email. I think you've got an email that was addressed to you and all of the other contributors, all of the other TikTok atheists that says, yeah, comment. But maybe I'm wrong. If you've got the email, when I post the link, call in and you can tell me that I'm wrong about it.
Obviously, that's not what truth is.
Won't be long. I think we're getting to you now, aren't we?
Acceptable.
Obviously, because I care about truth.
I wouldn't be in that scenario.
Yeah, Danny,
obviously, right? Logically, because that's already happened. Like that's in the past. You don't have a time travel device. We're bringing this logical hypothetical up to show you that in some circumstances that do happen within the real world, you would lie to save people's lives. So your definition of truth isn't actually how we're typically using it. So what you're trying to do is you're trying to muddy the waters when I ask you, like, do you believe this? Do you think this to be true? So you don't actually have to answer the questions. And plenty of Christians don't like that because they clearly see that you don't really like want to be associated with Christians.
Freud was right about a lot of stuff. I don't actually want to say, I don't want to dwell on it, but Freud was right about a lot of stuff. Of course, whenever I say that, people accuse me of being more Jewish than I actually am. But yeah, I mean, it's undeniable. A lot of what Freud was right about, we just accept as obvious today, right? Like the idea that there is a subconscious at all, that many of our desires and drives are unseen even to ourselves. These things we just take as obvious now. But before Freud, that was fucking revolutionary. Look, when I say modern psychology was invented by a Jewish cokehead who was obsessed with sex and a Swiss mystic who read horoscopes in his free time, you guys think I'm saying that like it's a bad thing. I think it's based. I don't think it's right about everything, but I think it's an interesting attempt to bridge like the two magics, to bridge the masculine and feminine magics, to bridge, to create a unified science of the mind. I think Freud and Jung were fucking legends, cokeheads, but legends. And of course, yeah, Freud was a Jewish sex pervert. What do you expect? Doesn't mean he was wrong about everything, right? Trust a Jewish sex pervert to come up with the theories that he did, you know? Absolutely. Yeah, we'll go back to this.
I can imagine that I was in a situation where the best I could do as a consequence of my previous mistakes was to tell the least amount
Kingston,
of
man,
lie.
this is what I've been trying to basically unpack. If he didn't do this, if he didn't call himself a Christian, if he said, I'm a Gnostic, I believe in the teachings of Jesus Christ, I believe Jesus Christ was the Son of God or the most godly man who's ever walked among us or anything like that, without actually calling himself a Christian, it would be fine. But it's the all of the controversy and the bullshit and the way it comes from A, the lack of nuance, and B, the fact that Jubilee is probably trying to rinse this for clickbait, you know?
I could manage. But that would likely indicate that I had made all sorts of catastrophic errors on my way there.
So you would lie to save someone's life. So again, you do believe it to be true in that circumstance, even though you lied in that scenario. So
not
clearly,
without the context that I put it in.
You were not willing to die for it. You were not willing to let other people die for it. So that's not what you see to be true then, seemingly.
You're doing exactly what I said you were doing at the beginning of the conversation. You're generating an impossible,
Danny is the
hypothetical.
guy who got the W. I think he's up. No, we've got Shaniqua, and then he's up. Then Danny's up. Danny's the one who got the soundbite. Danny got the 20-second Joseph Goebbels clip. That's which can go all over Reddit now. Like Jordan Peterson owned.
With no precursors to back me into a corner.
How is it possible? Is there something contradictory about it?
Danny has been sitting on YouTube on the live tab with refresh, hitting the refresh button every 5 minutes with Jordan Peterson typed in the search bar. That's how Danny found this stream. Danny is basking in the glow, in the afterglow of his victory.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, nice to meet you too.
Great conversation.
Yeah. My next claim is that everybody worships something, including atheists, even though they might not know it.
I switched from due dates to due dates, and it made me go from weeks behind to weeks ahead of my dad.
Are you pregnant or something? What's going on?
Hi.
Good work.
Slay queen.
I'm Zena. So I want to start off with defining terms. How do you define worship?
Prioritize.
So almost like having a preference over something rather than the other.
It's a hierarchy.
Shane Gillis has the funniest bit about this, where he's like, when he met JBP in real life, and JBP was explaining to him like what you give value to, what you give attention to, is what you worship in a very Jungian sense, right? Like the things that you can say you believe in God, but if all your money, you can say you love your kids, but if none of your money goes to the church and none of your time goes to your family, all your money goes to the casino and all your time goes to pornography, then actually that's what you worship, right? Killer argument, very Jungian, very deep, very esoteric. And Shane Gillis is like, while Jordan's talking to me, Michaela was also there, and I just could not stop looking at Michaela's tits. And it's like, this is what I value. Like, this is an incredible bit about, it's very easy to make fun of this, but there is something true, in that idea that the things that you give attention to are your gods, like in a very simple metaphysical sense.
Hierarchy of preferences. Yeah, and you use it to direct your attention.
Right.
So whatever you're attending to, you're worshiping.
Right. So I've kind of become a little bit familiar with your idea of like this value-laden hierarchy.
Yeah.
Right. And you kind of posit that at the bottom of this hierarchy, or you call it top or bottom, I suppose. Right. At the bottom of this hierarchy, this foundational priority in your life is going to be considered God.
That's
is that
right.
Correct?
Yes.
Right.
It is fake, yes, but it's an attempt, right? It's an attempt to grapple with the divine, which I think is epic. And I think it's there's a lot of truth in it, right? There's a problem in science in general that no one wants to really admit, which is that everything above chemistry, shit starts to get weird. What do I mean by that? Physics sits on maths, or at least it should do. Real physics, hard physics, what's called the hard sciences, physics, chemistry, mathematics, they should sit on top of each other, right? Physics sits on maths, chemistry sits on physics. Biology sits on chemistry, psychology and sociology, and these things should sit in biology. They should be really a subset of biology, but they're not. They've become their own thing. They've become their own thing largely to push psychiatry, and largely because of big pharma, and largely because they want you medicated and living in a pod, right? But the actual core of psychology, if you read Freud, if you read Jung, the ideas in there are fucking profound, just saying.
I'm trying to imagine a situation in which could there be that someone has a priority at their foundation that is different from someone
Actually,
else's?
read. I've known you for a while, man. You'll be able to take it. Read the black books. Give it a go. Find an online PDF of the black books and just sit down and read. Maybe wait 5 years. Maybe wait 5 years till you're a little bit older. I think that 30 years old, 35 years old would be good. I'm a little bit ahead of schedule, but for most people, I think middle life is where you should really sit down and contemplate young.
Oh, definitely.
Right. So we can have different conceptions of God.
That's why we fight.
Right. So essentially,
Danny, by the way, guys. Danny, what's your ethnicity? Danny, are your mom and dad related, Danny?
actually, there's not one God.
I'm sorry,
There
you're
are
beautiful, Danny. You're a beautiful man. I'm kidding.
multiple gods, and these
Don't ban my channel.
gods exist in some realm of truth. It's true that this person has one God and it exists.
Yeah, probably better to think about it as multiple values, but that there's a hierarchy of values.
The guy in the background does look like Matan Evans, doesn't it?
Something at the bottom.
Right, but at the bottom is God, and
That's a definition, yeah.
Yeah, so at the bottom is God,
Yeah.
and there can be multiple people with different conceptions of God, and they're each valid in being called God. So there are multiple gods that exist.
It depends on what you mean by valid. So far, so good, but it depends on what you mean by valid, because I would say that some foundational conceptions don't play out when they're implemented. So if you put the wrong thing at the foundation, you end up in hell, for example. That's what happens in totalitarian states.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're saying
So they're not all equal. Like all foundational principles are not equal, even
Right.
though they might be equally foundational. Right.
So what makes one kind of foundational tenet better than another one?
That's an excellent question. Iterability. Imagine that you play a game with someone and you're a kid. It's fun.
Just out here educating the youth, the urban youth.
So then you play again and again and again.
So
then
repetition.
It's playability across multiple iterations. So then you have a friend, and a friend is
I
better.
see how it is. Just because Danny is in the chat, you want to skip ahead to Danny all of a sudden. It's all Danny. Listen, Danny's ego is inflated enough, all right? He doesn't need you fucking giving him a fucking being his fluffer in the background, all right? Shaniqua gets a chance just like everybody else, all right? This is a meritocracy. How dare you?
Better than having a game.
How dare you? A black woman is talking. Shut up, all right?
So that's one. Breadth of application is another. So if it's just for me now, it's not as good as something that would be benefit to both of us across time.
Right. So we're explaining characteristics that can be applied to these types of foundational values. But why is it that this iterability makes it better? And what does better mean?
Hallmark of better is likely to be selected voluntarily.
Right.
So it's invitational.
Another descriptive kind of quality. So we're talking about characteristics that in some type of system with a goal, an output being we could maybe say happiness, right? Or some type of
harmony.
Harmony,
Yeah,
right?
that's better. Not happiness precisely, because it's too short term.
Exactly. So as someone who is an atheist, right, I can explain that within a system, there are things that we can see as better or worse to meet this goal or meet this output. But what we're interested in, though, is what could make these things, regardless of any system, right?
Well, imagine that you set up a system and you implement it and it produces the opposite results to which you intend. Oh yeah, that's not a good system.
Exactly.
Right, so the foundational principles are lacking because when you implement them, the game degenerates instead of moving towards the aim.
Right,
Okay,
so we're talking about
okay.
within a system. When we talk about something being moral, right, just absolutely moral, it means that without a system, right, this thing is simply moral with no reason. Stands independent, this thing is good. So I'm trying to figure out if such thing can exist. And if so, do you believe that these things are moral in of themselves, self-evidently moral, or are they moral in accordance with the system?
I can't define them any more accurately than I already did, really.
Okay. In regards to morality, when we talk about the divine, when we talk about
unironically, Shaniqua is mogging all of you. Danny, take note. Shaniqua's the best one so far. She's actually asking a really interesting question. The claim is one of the weakest. It's the weakest of the three so far. Everybody worships something. Yeah, okay.
About God and religion, these moral tenets and religion, right, and God exist as good because it is God, right? So it's self-evident, right? Without any kind of goal or output, this thing is good. So I want to figure out how.
There's an element of that that's true. So for example, in the story of Job, Job is unfairly tortured in consequence of a bet between God and Satan. And so Job is emblematic of someone who's being hurt for no apparent reason. Okay, so Job's response to that is that he refuses to lose faith in himself, and he refuses to lose faith in the ultimate goodness of being. Okay, and those are axiomatic decisions. They're not exactly evidence dependent because he is suffering. There's an arbitrariness in that that's reminiscent of what you claim.
So I'm essentially trying to figure out, do you believe that something can be good, like stance independently, something that can be good?
I don't know what you mean by stance independent.
Okay, so
you mean independent of people?
Independent of people, we can use that, or more so, I want to be more specific. Something that can be good, right, regardless of any end goal. It's just good.
No, because
I think good
there's a teleos to it. That
is tied up with goal.
Goal. Yeah. Okay, I completely agree. So, in a sense, this is why.
That's why the religious goal in Christianity is the establishment of the kingdom of heaven on earth. It's goal dependent.
Stop it, Jordan. Stop going back to Christianity. What you doing? It's not your fucking. Stay in your lane.
Okay, right.
So it's in reference to a goal.
So,
or the goal would be the imitation of Christ.
Someone's goal, right, can be something that doesn't encompass being in congruence with God or being with God.
The thing that they want to be in congruence.
Oh, right, okay.
That's right. That's right. That's good. That's great. The thing they want to be in congruence with is fundamentally equivalent to their God.
So what makes someone a Christian and what makes someone not a Christian? What makes like that's what I'm trying to figure out, because
that's a good question.
Yes.
Yeah, well, probably the deepest answer to that is willingness to shoulder your cross voluntarily and trudge uphill regardless of circumstances.
Okay, so someone can have a God, because in your definition, your first preference, that is God, right? So someone can believe in God, right, and not be a Christian, right?
Yeah, well, there's a statement that Christ makes in the Gospels. He says, not everyone who says, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven.
So not that they're even saying that they believe in God, but they just...
No, but that's why I'm saying this to you, is that Christ himself points out that there's a difference between people who say they believe and people who act it out. And the fundamental issue is the action rather than the stated belief.
But he also says that, to be saved, right, you must believe God has died for your sins, or that God has resurrected in some way. So it's like, I don't necessarily think that we can take from the Bible and say that like acting in accordance with God necessarily means, or acting in accordance with, the principles of God, like for example, sacrifice, like you talk about, means that you are Christian. I don't see how you can get that from that interpretation and then, kind of justify it as the truth.
I don't think that the fact that you sacrifice is sufficient to make you Christian.
So can we repeat once again what you believe makes someone Christian?
There's many things, but one of the most fundamental is that you believe that the cosmos itself is founded on the principle of voluntary self-sacrifice. Best founded. Let me offer you a contrary example. So I could assume that power rules. And so that my assumption would be, if I can make you do it, I win. Right? And I can found a whole society on that. And that happens a lot, by the way. And that's also societies tend to degenerate. And so that would be a society that was founded on the principle that you get to sacrifice and I don't have to. Right. Now, the contrary to that would be something like you give up voluntarily and with courage all the things you need to situate yourself properly in relationship to the future and other people. Right. So then there's a harmony. That's why I talked about harmony earlier.
So you navigate your life, right, in accordance kind of to this principle of self-sacrifice. Can I say it in that way?
Yes, you can
Right.
definitely say it that
Thank you.
way. That's exactly right. And
Right.
navigate is the right term.
So someone does not have to have any awareness of Christ, of the story of Jesus, and but let's say 60% of their actions, right, or more, whatever kind of metric you want to use,
Okay, link is
are
in
in
the
line
chat.
with this
So the
self-sacrificial.
the Christian thinkers of the Middle Ages dealt exactly with that problem when they were talking about the pre-Christian philosophers, for example.
Yeah.
And they noted the similarity, let's say, between pre-Christian Greek thought and later Christian thought, and presumed that there were moral actors outside the Christian domain.
Right.
They're
So is that person
addressing the
Christian
same-
though? Is that person
Well,
Christian?
to some degree, again, that's a matter of definition because
Exactly.
they would.
Listen, I was talking, but I was just talking to myself. I was just waffling. Don't worry about it. You didn't miss anything of vital importance. Essentially, Shanique was asking the right questions.
Be proclaiming
The link is in the chat if anybody wants to call in.
Christian propositions, but they're acting out the pattern,
Of
right? So,
Christianity.
yeah, so you imagine that full Christianity would involve a dozen things. And you can imagine someone who knows nothing of Christianity, say, acting out 8 of them.
Right.
Right.
So
then they'd be 8/12 Christian or something
8/12
like that.
Christian.
Well,
but to be like a full Christian, how can someone say I am Christian? Like I am Christian, not 8/12, but Christian.
Well,
I understand.
I hesitate to do that personally because
Okay.
I think it's the kind of goal that you be very careful about proclaiming. The technical.
But belief is not necessarily to be mostly Christian. Belief.
Listen, A. All right. Listen, A. Get in here right now. Get in here right now and say that to my fucking face. Good evening, Lewis.
Hello, George. I'm just playing Open Front right now, so I apologize.
Let me finish Shaniqua's thing. Hopefully, we can get Danny to call in if he's still lurking.
Belief is not necessary.
Do you think
8/12
Danny would be good at Open
right?
Front?
Well,
I feel like Danny would absolutely not be good at open front. But I mean, actually, if his open front playing abilities are anything like his debating abilities, then maybe actually.
Depends on what you mean by belief. See, because I would say that acting out the pattern is the deepest form of belief. Now, you could add to that what you say. So, maybe in the optimal situation, how you act and what you imagine and what you say, they're the same, right? But you can imagine a hypocrite who says all sorts of wonderful things and does nothing. And you could imagine another person who acts in a very positive manner, but proclaims nothing.
So what I'm kind of seeing is like a descriptive, a really early comprehensive but descriptive analysis of human action, human thought, and by which we can characterize people and put people in boxes. But I don't see
why in boxes.
Like when I say in boxes, I mean like I can categorize you based on your actions, not based on necessarily what you say, but based on your actions that you are more so or less so Christian, right? Things like that, right? So we can categorize people as Christian.
Well, I would say more or less voluntarily self-sacrificing.
But that's also what we came to though, is that someone can be like 60% or 70% Christian based on simply just acting in that way.
Richard Dawkins like
I watched it.
Pause there. You've been voted out by the majority.
Very good.
Thank you so much.
Really, very thoughtful.
You were complaining about this, like me saying that it was like retarded to call Jordan a Christian. Like he's very clearly like fucking aping the talking points of Christianity, but refusing.
So it gets confusing. It gets confusing, right? Because yes, here very explicitly, she's gone down into the minutia, and I think she asked a very appropriate question, and she's drilled down into it. And in order for him to explain his point, he's 100% used the Christian framework. Yeah.
Well, he's done that several
completely
times.
used the
He's
Christian-
done that several times over the course.
Yeah, and it gets No, go.
You could be 60% Christian. What the fuck are they talking about?
Who's
saying that? Yeah, no, it's just the points. Like he's just aping Christian talking points and refusing to commit.
Well, Lewis, you're an actual Christian, right? And when I say, for anyone who doesn't understand what I'm talking about, there is a comedic skit by a young man called Bo Burnham called Pandering. If you go on YouTube, type in Bo Burnham Pandering. I can't play it for you here because it would get copyright struck, obviously. But it's Bo Burnham wearing some cowboy boots and a hat, a 16-gallon hat or whatever they're called, prancing around singing a song about how he's like pretending to be a country and western pickup truck driving. You know, the song is called Pandering, basically, right? It's about how when you see this, I mean, Lewis, you are from middle America, right? In Orthodox, you're Christian, you're white, you're young, you're male. You are the target demographic for what Jordan Peterson is pandering to, whether he's doing it directly or indirectly.
He's doing a terrible job of it. He's not actually. Yeah, I've already had this discussion with you. Like, he's not pandering to me. He's pandering to people like me to support Israel. Like, that's like, once again, Jordan Peterson only started this bullshit, his Christian bullshit, after he started working for the Daily Wire. Like, he only started.
What about those lectures, man? What about that incredible series of lectures?
What about his benzo addiction?
Okay, but like he always
you have a cross to carry, do we not?
no, but like he always did that, like sort of like religious analysis or whatever. But he only ever started doing this kind of bullshit after the Ben Shapiro Daily Wire sellout. Like, that's.
No, I think you're fair. I don't think old JBP would have been, coming in.
Old Jordan Peterson was exactly what you described him as, which is like Jungian, whatever the fuck,
Gnostic, edgy psych professor.
Yeah. And once again, like, I just reject, like, the reason why he's pandering like this is because he works for Ben Shapiro now. Like, that's
damn. You know what I hate about it? I hate two things about what you just said. One, how reductive it is, and two, how fucking correct you are. Because at the end of the day, there's no way Jordan Peterson or Michaela Peterson books Jordan Peterson to go on Jubilee. This is done by the team. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This is done by the handlers. So I do get what you mean. I do get what you mean and what you're saying. It's a fair point. It's a fair point. More intellectual dark web. Yeah, real. Bro, I will do further streams, let alone lists. I'll give you proper streams on this topic in the future. I see there are a lot of people in the back chat. Can't let you all in because I'm not giving StreamYard money. However, Danny. Danny, if you're still listening, call in, buddy. I mean, we'd love to host you. We'd love to have you on here.
Yeah, so guys, before I cut in, is my mic
too rude? Open table app is getting pretty good.
Hey, George, this ad perfectly summarizes what Lewis was talking about.
Say what? Really does. Say it again.
The ad perfectly summarizes your point.
Oh, yeah.
Israel and money.
Peterson,
how are you doing?
What's the other one? Gold. Buy gold.
Yeah,
buy it now. Buy it now.
What's your name?
Like, I'm one of the. I'm like one of the people who's like been following Jordan Peterson's since way back when he like first got viral. Like, his slow transition to this has not really been that natural. Like, what's the name of that one atheist guy, the Cosmic Skeptic? Like, that guy seems a lot more genuine in his sort of like transition.
Oh, you're talking about Alex O'Connor.
Yeah, that guy seems.
Well, he's not.
More...
The thing is, Alex O'Connor still calls himself an atheist.
That's what I mean. That's what I mean. He's like saying, "Yeah, I don't know. I just don't think that I'm an atheist anymore." Like, that's way more honest than whatever the fuck Jordan Peterson.
No, I get what you're saying. Like I say, you are the target audience for this, so I can totally understand. You, of all people, are justified in your kind of hatred because, like, Jordan Peterson is not trying to talk to me in like middle class London, right? He is specifically talking.
No, he's trying to talk. Oh, also. Once again,
he's like, subscribe to the day. You haven't subscribed to the Daily Wire.
Once again, just keep in mind, like, he always just says judo Christian values, never Christian.
Judo Christian. Yeah, judo.
He only says.
You mean Judeo Christian?
Well, you know what? Yeah. He only ever says that. He never says Christian values. He's like, oh, Judeo-Christian values. It's like, shut up.
One gorilla versus 100 judo Christians. I don't know, bro. Like, fuck. Okay. Yeah, I totally get what you're saying.
You're saying atheist worship.
Oh, Danny is up. Danny in the hot seat. Danny, friend of the show, who was in the chat earlier. Danny, I'm sorry, buddy. Okay. Look, Danny, come home. I didn't mean to be mean to you. You don't look that inbred. I was just being funny.
Also,
George,
like, it's not... kick off one of these people and let Alex up. I want to see Alex's take on this.
Oh, for fuck's sake. You really want to give Alex...
I think Alex is a real mystic. Alex is a real spiritual.
Yeah, and Danny was like, Danny came in and was like, I wandered into this side of YouTube. You know, Danny is still quietly watching, right? It's he's just quietly where he's like, I couldn't be seen to associate with these people. I'm on the mystic schizo racist side of
channel.
YouTube.
He's just got like 5,000 subs. Like, come on, pussy.
Come on, Danny. The fuck, Danny.
Things or people or places, whatever. Can you be very clear about your definition of worship again?
By the way, I'm going to clarify. This guy cooks Jordan Peterson. This guy cooks Jordan Peterson.
No, he does. He does. And Danny, look, just to give you your props, man. You have a kind of scuffed Timothy Chalamet kind of air to you that is what a kind of twink vibe that is working in your favor. It's not all hate. It's not all hate.
Prioritize and sacrifice for.
Okay, that's it. That's your understanding of worship.
Well, I could flesh it out, but that'll do for the time we have.
Okay. Do Catholics attend to Mary?
Yes.
Okay. So do they fit that description of worship?
Yes.
So you would say Catholics and other people that revere Mary, like the Eastern Orthodox tradition, worship Mary.
It's a brilliant point from the atheist position, right? It's an endless schism and infight between the various Christian denominations that the Catholics give Mary this primacy and this holy status that is somewhere between Jesus and just a regular run-of-the-mill saint. And he's tapping into this thing that, like, Jordan Peterson has been flirting with Catholicism recently. Apparently, he's been seen going to or attending Catholic Mass. It's very different from him saying, I'm a Catholic, and from him firmly hitching his colors to that mast. But to be fair, Catholics do have a relationship with Mary, which, if we are using the value system of I worship that, I venerate that which I give my attention to, then it's hard to argue that Catholics don't worship Mary in some sense. I believe JBP is going to say something like, yeah, they worship her, but not as much as they worship Jesus. Obviously, this would cause Catholics to go into anaphylactic shock. This is a horrific thing to say. Catholics will spurg out until they're blue in the face to let you know that they don't worship Mary. They pray to Mary. They pray through Mary or whatever the fuck. But, it's a good point, nevertheless, that Danny's raised here.
George.
Well, they might not put it in.
Yeah, sure, no. I'm sorry, shoot.
Danny is right. There is no God.
Hail Zeus, hail Lucifer.
Hail Lucifer, hail Satan.
But you would put it
Hail science.
No.
You just said it. Now you're taking it back.
There's
now?
still a hierarchy.
Okay, there's a hierarchy, but within
there's something at the top.
Danny, you're coming across as snarky and you haven't even said anything yet. Okay, your aura is giving entitled, bratty, kind of like you need. Look at that. Look at the expression. Brat Summer, Danny. You need to chill. Like, actually.
Top.
All right, you can worship things
Mary
below.
is quite a ways up the hierarchy, but not at the top.
Let's go over your
fair argument. Mary is somewhere up the hierarchy. There's not just worship is not binary. We don't just worship one thing or the other. There is a pantheon of gods, if you like, with the one God at the top of it, and Mary down the line. Some Christians say Jesus would be down the line. Some people say Jesus is the one God. Whatever. The point being that I don't think Peterson's answer.
What did Jesus say? Jesus is down the line, though.
Mormons, for example, that some outsider kind of Pentecostalists would say that.
George, that sounds all made up.
Shut the fuck up. You know what I mean.
Your definition of worship again. What's your definition of worship?
Danny trying to rake him over the coals here.
Attend to.
Do
prioritize.
Do Catholics
sacrifice for?
What do Catholics attend to? Do they prioritize Mary over all other human beings?
No, I didn't.
They kind of do, Jordan. Because if Christ is not completely man, right? He's half man, half God. Christ is not a human being. Then they do worship Mary over all other human beings, which is what Danny asked you. Danny asked you, do they worship her? Do they attend to her? And does that mean they worship her? Yes. Do they do that more than any other human being? Yes, is the answer to that question. If you're being truthful, I think there's a little bit of disingenuousness from JBP there.
I didn't say overall, did I? I didn't add that to my definition.
You understand?
I said there was a hierarchy as well.
You attend.
So you can attend to something trivially, or you can attend to it deeply.
And now you're adding stuff to the definition. But your original definition.
I added the hierarchy part at the beginning.
Are you
just didn't understand it.
Are you familiar with the Immaculate Conception?
Why is that relevant?
Because you go to a Catholic church, don't you? Or you've attended recently. You're interested in Catholicism, aren't you?
So, Danny, you knew that. Danny, you knew that he went to a Catholic church. That's specifically why you're bringing up Mary, right? Because you knew that Danny, you sneaky. Danny, you sneak, Danny. You sneaky, Danny.
Danny should have brought a Semele and Zeus.
Yeah.
Also, everyone follow George's Twitter. I've posted it in chat.
Thanks, Lewis. I love you,
Bro. Like this Danny guy. Like it's just so funny because like he knows what he's doing, but like
he knows exactly. Listen, it's a Danny W. We have to give it. He not only
he hides behind the twinkishness. Like he wants you to think he's like an innocent little twink, and then he like stabs someone in the back. You know.
And you, Danny, and you.
All right. Are you familiar with their doctrines?
Somewhat.
Okay. You're
Their
familiar.
doctrines are
How
very
do they
deep.
regard Mary?
Why are you asking me that?
Because you're a Christian.
You say that. I haven't claimed that.
Oh, what is this? Is this Christians versus atheists?
I don't know.
You don't know where you are right now.
Don't be a smartass.
Well,
and I mean
either you're a
'cause I
Christian
won't
or you're
talk
not.
to you if you're a smartass.
Bruh, something about the young guy telling the old guy, "Oh, you don't know where you are right now." It's just an instant W. It's just an instant mog. Like, I don't know. You don't know where you are. Oh, like it's just like, oh, really? I'm cringing right now. I'm internally cringing right now. This is.
Bro,
Yeah,
wait, George.
Nice W, Danny.
George, psychoanalysis. Just look at the paused frames of their faces. Like you could see Jordan Peterson like wants to be like, "Fuck you! Who the fuck are you?" Like he wants to just cuss him out, and Danny's like snarky. Like just look at like the facial textures, you know.
Danny, you do come across as exceptionally obnoxious. I'm sure I'm not the first person to tell you this, but.
Bro, Jordan Peterson looks like he wants to call him the N-word right there.
That's literally
Either you're a Christian or you're not. Which one is it?
I could be either of them, but I don't have to tell you.
You don't have to tell me. I was under the impression I was invited to talk to a Christian. Am I not talking to a Christian?
No, you were invited to.
I think everyone should look at the title of the YouTube channel. You're probably.
Now look, if Danny's saying it. Also, Danny, how bad do you feel that you fucking fumbled that, huh? You meant title of the YouTube video. You said title of the YouTube channel. Danny, come on, buddy. But no, point taken. He claims he has an email. If there really is an email that went out to all these motherfuckers and to JBP's team, and it literally did say one Christian versus 20 atheists, he hasn't got a leg to stand on, especially not in this bit, to be honest with you. Need to see that email, but interesting.
I put the lobster on my Revolut.
Fucking logged Danny out. Look at these other ones: conservative versus 25.
Yo, George, wait. On the ad, what is that phenotype they were? Like, what the fuck was that?
Oh, I missed that, TBH. I wasn't even watching it. Let's wheel Danny up a little bit.
Did you let what's his face Alex in the chat or no?
Alex got bored of waiting and dipped, I think. Hold on, let me check. Yeah, no, he's not in there. There's a few people.
Okay, wait.
Smart ass.
Danny, what % Jewish are you?
Well,
and I mean
either you're a Christian or you're not.
To you if you're a smartass.
Either you're a Christian or you're not. Which one is it?
I could.
Yo, there's a hatred. There is a deep-seated hatred for Christians and Christianity coming from Danny. Those of you who have taken my course on how to read auras will know that Danny will be able to see the black ooze seeping off of Danny's crown chakra right now. Like, holy shit!
Every time you pause, I can just see the frustration.
Sexual harassment, man.
Bro, every time you pause, I could just see the anger and like in Jordan Peterson's face. Just look at this like still frame right here.
These are two people who are seething at each other. Danny is seething because Jordan just simply will not give him the bait he needs, which is the admission that he's a Christian, so he can be like, boom, here's the arguments I've been rehearsing in the mirror all day. And JBP is seething because this is the fourth or fifth twink kid now who's trying to get him to explicitly say, I am a Catholic Christian who believes in the Nicene Creed. Like, just like
the issue with Jordan Peterson is by his like own admission, he's too agreeable of a person. So like he can't just be like, fuck you. He can't just be like, fuck you. Like, why are you talking to me?
He's a people person. He always says that. He says his wife is the disagreeable one, and he's more effeminate, and he's more agreeable, and he's more of a people pleaser. He works in a clinical setting with people. He doesn't have that iron in him, right? He's not going to rule Singapore. Like, so
like in this conversation,
when I was born here, this building was a mud flat.
This is a swamp.
This is a metropolis now. So long as I'm alive, no one's gonna knock this country down.
Bro, can you imagine like trying to be Jordan Peterson in this situation where you're like talking to Danny here and you can't just be like, fuck you.
Oh, bro, you can't just grab Danny by the back of his skull.
Oh, he would be so real if he did that. He would be so real if he did that.
It's like, who's a Christian now, Danny? Who's a just wailing on him? Just like,
man,
Zeus told me to do this,
man.
Bro, George JP would have been like, he literally, would you understand the Trad West edits of Danny's face going through that table that would have been made? Do you understand? It would have been like Baldwin. It would have been like Baldwin from Crusader. What's that movie? Kingdom Come or whatever?
Kingdom of Heaven.
Kingdom of Heaven. It would have been Baldwin 4 and just Danny's face going through a fucking table.
He would have a black sun like halo behind him.
Hey, Jordan, he's a Roman salute. He's like, Hail Christ! Hail the sun! Fallen victors!
I have to tell you.
You don't have to tell me. I was under the impression I was invited to talk to a Christian. Am I not talking to a Christian?
No, you were invited to.
I think everyone should look at the title of the YouTube channel. You're probably in the wrong YouTube video.
Oof. Right. I mean, look, you have to say it wrecked. You have to say it. I mean,
so what do you guys, so what do you think like actually happened here? Do you think like Jubilee like lied to Jordan Peterson and told the truth to like, or do you think that like Jordan Peterson, like what do you think actually happened here?
I mean, the video was called Christians versus 20 atheists, man.
That's
it wasn't called that before.
No, that's what it was originally called. I'm wondering.
Yeah,
I don't think Jordan Peterson is reading his own emails for a start.
Yeah,
he just showed up.
No. He has a team and stuff that tells him what to do, and then he has like contracts on what he can and can't say, and then he shows up to this, and they Jubilee framed it as Christian versus atheist.
They do believe.
Bayer, you're essentially right, dude. You're essentially right in what you're saying here is that like he's literally denying Christ in the very literal immaculate conception, died on the cross, resurrection sense. Like he's talking till he's blue in the face about why Christianity is good.
Wait. Hey, there's someone in the chat talking shit. Hey, Baptist MAGA, join the panel, bitch. Join the panel.
What the fuck, man? Imagine typing something in the channel and like typing something in the chat and not joining. Just come say it. Get it off your chest.
Come say it to me, pussy.
Come say it to my face.
Come say it to my face, bitch.
This is kind of like a different
Baptist
thing.
MAGA, I'm real. I love him.
When Peterson said that you can be like 60% Christian or whatever the fuck, like what percentage of what percentage of Christian do you think like the Buddha was, like just hypothetically?
See, that's the thing. That's why I don't like this. Although you can make a very compelling 41%. Christ's teachings are a lot more Buddhist than they are Jewish. But I still don't think that you can say Christianity is a matter of degrees. I think you can say something like, I was raised in a Christian culture, therefore I'm culturally a Christian. But to be an actual Christian, dyed in the wool, card-carrying member of a Christian church is to believe that Jesus Christ is God in the flesh, incarnate on earth. Like, it's not enough to just believe he was the most godly or that he was the best spiritual teacher or that he was... You literally have to believe that he was God on earth who incarnated, who we killed, or the Jews killed, depending on your take, and who died and who rose again. And you have to believe he was born of a virgin in most of those denominations, right? So, yeah.
Oh my God, this Blackberry guy. Wait. I want to make a point. Crashing out.
Blackberry is the guy who told me to open the phones. Blackberry literally like yap, open the phones.
I'm sick and tired of young men not understanding that you need to crash the fuck out. Like controlling your emotions doesn't mean not having emotions. You're castrating cuck. Control your emotions. Choose to be angry when you're supposed to be angry. Like what the fuck? You're such a cuck. Your balls have been crushed by your own.
How crazy is that that's the internet's definition of like, oh, you had an emotion, I win. You had an emotion. It's like when people realize that emotion is the way you change reality to like conform to your will, it's like you're gonna be pretty bummed out that you've been practicing stoicism for the last 10 years. Like, oh,
Jordan, wait until they learn that emotion is a microcosmic representation of woman. Women are how you change reality. Cope about it.
Boom.
You're really quite something, you are.
Aren't I? But you're really quite nothing. Right? You're not a Christian.
Banger.
Danny, mate, you're still listening. That was the absolute W right there. That was it was rude. It was obnoxious. It was smarmy.
Look at Jordan Peterson's face.
Jordan Peterson looked like you just bitch slapped him in the fucking face, Danny. I mean, like, fair play, mate. That's a really good. That's like watching a sparring match between two heavyweights, and then one of them just delivers like a fucking beautiful uppercut. Just like beautiful. Like, boom.
Peterson is overdosing on benzos because of this clip.
Wait, did he cry anywhere in the interview or not?
Not yet. I don't.
No, he cried after on his benzo.
Probably, no joke. Yeah. Fuck. No, Danny, fair play to you.
I'm ODing on benzo. Oh,
this was a W. And his reaction to this, which we've all seen a million times clipped and shared and whatever, his reaction to this was frankly pathetic. As obnoxious and as petty as you are being, Danny, the question
There's
you
nothing
ask.
wrong about it.
No, the question you ask is 100% valid. I mean, it is a massive L to walk away from this at this point and be like, oh no, I'm done. You're beneath me. It's like, no, come on, dude. Answer the guy's question. Like, what the
Well, I mean, not only that, but it's like, it might be rude or whatever the fuck, but it's not wrong. Like
Precisely.
Bro, Danny, okay, like for who Danny is, he did exactly what he was supposed to do.
Absolutely. He played the cards well. You only get what you get, right? He got dealt a hand and he absolutely knocked it out of the park. Atheist brownie points must be through the roof. Danny must be having sex with many non-binary people this week. Let's be real about it. But yeah,
many non-binary she-males.
Yeah, Danny W. It annoys me. You guys know that what annoys me is the fucking all that people see is this 30-second thing. It's a bit it's not fair, I think,
It's like the Nick Fuentes shit. Like people are only gonna see like the clips they agree with. Like they're not
true.
gonna,
and everyone's algorithm just is I'mRight.com and just serves them back their little hug box of happy feelings of like no one even wants to venture outside of what their own opinions. Fine, but it annoys me that like look, we've watched an hour of this and that 30 seconds of Danny, big W as it was, is not indicative of the last hour that we just watched. We didn't sit there for an hour watching Jordan take L after L after L at all. Like there were a couple where they had him on the ropes, a couple where he had them on the ropes, and then this bit is what
taking a good number of L's.
Someone said, "Who's this Mexican crashing out?" I am Zeus.
That's Zeus.
Oh shit, we
got to do some drugs too. I should do drugs and crash out hard.
Here's how I got my team to use Monday
every
Sales
single
CRM
time.
and actually like it. Let me start by saying,
really though.
Hi there.
You gotta make that money, man.
Almost as good as Shaniqua, and we're now Brain Scar guy is up.
Hi, nice
What's
to
your
meet you.
name?
Gerard.
Hello, Gerard.
Nice to meet you, sir. So you've said that worship is when you prioritize and sacrifice for something, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
But there's a hierarchy in there.
Oh my God, this guy's dad.
I
is a
prioritize and
You can see
sacrifice
it.
for my wife more than I would prioritize and sacrifice for a random person on the street, right?
Probably. Yeah.
Presumably. Do I worship
I don't know.
my
I've
wife?
seen some pretty bad marriages.
Assuming a good marriage, are you saying I worship my wife?
I'm trying to define worship.
That's what I'm asking. So prioritize and sacrifice. I do
The
those
higher
things.
it is in the hierarchy, the more what you're doing is akin to worship. But even in your trivial acts of attention, you're prioritizing and partaking in worship, even if you don't know it.
So I am
And it's
prioritizing.
partly, well, with regard to your wife, say. So why do you value your wife? You do value your
Yes,
wife.
I love
Okay.
her. So I
Right.
prioritize and I
Okay.
sacrifice for her.
Right. So that's within the confines of love, let's say.
Sure.
What else does it serve?
What else does what serve?
Your love and your marriage.
I mean, I am
Wait,
married
George,
to my wife because I love her. That's also why I prioritize.
I want to say something. Him making this like with his hands was like a really unconscious like insult to his skull shape. Like it's a reach.
It was a Masonic symbol, bro.
No, he's making fun of his skull shape, bro. Like he put his heads in front of him. He went like this. Like look at the guy's skull shape. It's weird. You don't think Jordan Peterson, like a hyper-fixated
Omega
guy on
slab.
drugs, would notice?
Looks Romanian and Bulgarian.
Might be
bro.
unconscious. You might not even know that he's mirroring back to him his own head shape. Like,
and sacrifice for her. I certainly wouldn't think I worship her, and I don't think anyone else would make that.
I'm
Are you
trying to
making
make
that
a
claim?
definition.
Okay.
Yeah, that there's a hierarchy of attentional priority, and as you move up it or down it,
we're
depending on
still
whether
we're
you
still
think
on
about
this claim of like everybody worships something. People just don't know what they're worshiping.
Yeah, guys.
Which, by
So
the way,
this is the issue, right? Is that he's using such loaded language, and like all these plebs don't actually know what he's saying because he insists on using all this Christian colored language, when really that's an issue. People don't get what he means.
All the
And
obsession with
frankly, it's kind of his
definitions.
fault for not just taking it down a peg and using less loaded language. When someone hears worship, right, they think on your knees, praying to Jesus, going to church, right? They don't think about value hierarchies and all this complex psychological whatever. That's the problem. He just won't be clear for a guy who's obsessed with definitions. He keeps using Christian coded language to say things that aren't specifically theological.
Huh.
Religion without schizophrenia is like an angel without wings.
Or like a woman without a penis.
No, I really do think there's something to what you're saying there. If you were him, how would you go in doing it differently?
Wait, me?
No. If you were in JBP's position.
Oh, bro, every atheist I've ever talked to has called me like a schizo. Like, they don't even, like, I don't argue with them. I'm just like, fuck you, God's real.
No, I'm saying no, the guy. The guy was just speaking.
They said no.
No, I think Hector was speaking.
Yeah, that was me.
Oh, Hector, my bad.
Well,
sorry.
Yeah, no, it's all good. Yeah, well, I'd just be clear with what I actually believe. I'd say, well, hey, look, this is a psychological thing, right? You worship, air quotes, right? And I'd make the distinction. I'd say I'm not talking about the kind of worship where you're in the church adoring the Eucharist, right? I'm talking about what do you prioritize in your life? That's what I really mean. And he is saying that, but he needs to draw the distinction very, very clearly for people to actually understand what he's saying, right? Because most people just aren't going to get it. They're going to hear the loaded term, and then what he's actually saying is right over their head.
No, I think you're right. It matters massively the language that he's using, like massively.
And Jordan Peterson has like this dialectic problem where he's always like trying to confuse everybody with definitions and what you actually mean by something. It's just a way to obfuscate, like getting to the exact point of the argument.
And like,
sometimes I feel like he does it to go down a layer and to actually try and make sense of what they're really asking. And sometimes I do feel like the "what do you mean by" is just a cheap trick at the end of the day.
Well, that's why it's like such a meme with him. Like now, it's just like what he does. He has no arguments. Definitely. He's just a sort of buffoon, and I don't think he's like really a serious thinker anymore.
Such a shame. Such a shame. Such a fool.
Could you please define resurrection, please?
Wait. Not to derail too much. Hey, Louis, check out my Mexican gloves. I got credit. Your people, Louis.
A pinnacle or a foundation. You move more towards worship. Right. Okay. So even the small things, I'll give you an example. Imagine you go on a date. Mm-hmm. Well, imagine that your aim is a long-term relationship like a marriage. Okay, now imagine that your aim is short-term sexual gratification. Your pattern of attention is going to vary during the date, depend on your ultimate end. That's the hierarchy. The way that you attend to your wife is dependent on your ultimate aims, even if you don't know it.
So at what point is it?
This guy has this guy has one of the most interesting physiognomies in the world. He's a famous TikToker, hundreds of thousands of views on TikTok.
I debated this guy on TikTok last year.
People pull into his TikTok and it's just him being like, oh, how do you know God is real? It's so good.
No, I crawled into this guy on TikTok.
Breakdowns, bro.
Yo, you've seen this guy on TikTok before.
Yeah, I talked to him. I was coming at him from an atheist perspective. I was asking him because all of his posts are super morally they're all about moralisms and stuff like this. So I was saying, why do you even really care? Aren't you supposed to be an atheist? Why is your preference so important?
Jordan, please start doing full physiognomy breakdowns, videos just analyzing physiognomy.
Man. He looks like a Zionist.
No, you're in the chat twice. You know that, or is that other one not you?
Wait, what?
There's somebody else called Magic Purple Reptile King. Is that not you?
That's not me.
All right, let me change their display name. Let's see. We'll figure out who that is. Cool.
We're trying to shape.
He fell off, this guy too. He used to be, I think, a lot sharper, and I think he just sort of all the TikTok debating has done cortisol damaged him or something.
Yeah, and no, I can tell a grifter. I can tell a grifter for sure. But you've got to give me credit, dude, because I'm kind of fucked if I do and I'm fucked if I don't. Imagine tomorrow I wake up and I'm like, no, Jesus really did resurrect and come back to life. He really was born of a virgin via immaculate conception. If I started then saying I was a Catholic, no one would believe me. It would be like a boy who cried wolf situation. So I genuinely believe that faith should be a personal matter anyway, really, in the scheme of things, as though if you're not planning on joining a broader church or community. But yeah, man, I'm kind of fucked if I do and fucked if I don't. If I don't join the church, then I'm shyster. If I do join the church, then I'm a shyster. I don't think it matters. I don't think it actually matters. TBH.
Well,
yeah, exactly. I know, and God will know, and that's enough. Yeah,
well. When I cut the head off the snake and it bleeds out, it always rejuvenates and life continues.
It's kind of weird though, because Jordan actually almost did exactly what you said in the Alex O'Connor interview from earlier. Alex was like, if you went back in time and you put a camera right there, right in front of the tomb, would you see someone walk out?
That's right. Yeah.
And now it's like he's going back and forth. I mean, maybe he's on a journey and it's genuine, but I just wish he'd be clear with everyone because he's a public figure. It's not my fault you're a public figure, dude. Like, be clear to everyone where you're at. If you're at,
Yeah,
okay,
I think he needs to like renounce
tomb,
Gnosticism and actually join a church and join a sect of like Christianity and do the Russell Brand thing. Because like, it's not this halfway house shit is not going to make sense for anyone. And I think it really is lost on a lot of people, me included half the time, being brutally honest. But yeah,
bro, Jordan Peterson is like not even a Gnostic. He's just like a psychologist. Like, there's no real like spirituality to what he's saying.
Mormonism with Byzantine
even I get
aesthetics.
confused. I'm like, is it just psychology, or is there a point to coloring it with spiritual language? Like, I don't know. I haven't read enough Jung to know.
I don't think there is a point for it.
I have to be an ultimate prick for Bayer in the chat here just for 1 second and say, but what do you mean by denying Christ? Do you mean he actually said that, like, Christ? See, when we say to deny Christ, we mean it on lots of different levels. You mean it in the sense that I just said, right? As in immaculate conception, resurrection, literal incarnation of God, not son of God, literally God. That's what you mean, right? In that case, he did deny Christ. He did.
I'm going to be honest.
Like, he's Peter, man. I don't know him, man.
Being like a devout Christian, like, you have to have like had manic episodes in your life. I don't think Jordan Peterson has ever been manic, you know? He doesn't have that like I just can't see someone like him having that elevated energy level. He's too intellectual, he's too left-brained.
No, I know what you mean. And also the same thing you said before about him not being able to get angry enough that when he does, it almost seems fake. Like the real authentic emotion is him crying for some reason. But yeah,
is it worship? Because it sounds like you're saying worship is almost a spectrum, right? It's not a binary. It's not a.
It's kind of like that. That's a good question.
When is it worship as opposed to just I love my wife?
The closer you get to the top or the bottom, the more it's more like
how
worship.
Close to the top, because I don't think I worship anything. And if you're saying I have to hit a certain threshold for it to be worship, it is possible I don't worship anything then, right?
It's not possible that you don't worship anything.
What do I worship?
Because you wouldn't attend. Well, love.
So you think I worship love?
Do you attend in consequence of love? I'm trying to define something. What do you mean worship? Well, I told you what I meant. What do you mean?
So I mean, something you worship is something that you have a reverential view for in a manner in which you believe it to be above and beyond normal things.
His definition to do with the scar on his head, he's like, it's something that you're paying reverence to, that you have a belief in. You have to go through reverence, and you have to go through belief, and you have to go through all this. Like, it's just like Jordan's definition of what, worship was actually better, I think.
George, this guy came onto this panel like arguing with Jordan Peterson. He wanted Jordan Peterson to tell him he worshipped his wife. Like, this guy is like obsessed.
Wow, with dog.
Like you.
So do you have that attitude towards your wife?
I have that.
Do you privilege her compared to other women?
Of course, I privilege her compared to other women, but I don't worship her. Nor does she worship me.
By the definition you just offered, yes, you do. Because you just offered a definition that involved prioritization and elevation.
Well, and thinking that she is divine above and beyond what a normal natural phenomenon can be. Not other women, no, beyond any human being could ever be. I will prioritize her over any other women, but I don't think that she is.
You're making the assumption that only the thing at the top or the bottom has anything to do with worship. And I'm saying that's not true. It's a hierarchy of prioritization. And there's either something at the top or the bottom, depending on the metaphor, or you're fragmented and confused. Those are the only options.
So let's say
you're either going in many directions, or you're going in one direction.
So let's suppose I'm fragmented and confused. Then you agree I don't worship anything.
No, then you worship multiple things.
George.
What's the threshold when it's worship, right? I prioritize a lot of stuff.
I said.
This guy's like psychology is so dark. He wants Jordan Peterson to be this liberator who's like, yeah, you're a cuck and you worship your wife. Like, he wants him to say that to him, but he just won't. Like,
that's fascinating. You mean like
he wants him to be the liberator that like has that
order type of thing, like the criminal who secretly wants to get arrested just so they can have some structure in their life.
Yeah. He wants Jordan Peterson to be his Zeus or Lucifer.
The closer you get to the pinnacle, or the closer
you get... Can you give me some sort of metric? How close do I got to get to this pinnacle?
Do you know the difference between cheap literature and deep literature?
Yes.
Okay, that's the same issue. And how do you distinguish between them? What's the difference between cheap and deep?
I mean, it's really an opinion-based thing, right?
Is it? So it's just an opinion that Dostoevsky is better than a porno magazine.
Well, I've spoken to people who think To Kill a Mockingbird's cheap. It's one of my favorite books. So, I mean, people will differ on opinion.
Just because people are stupid about things doesn't mean that their opinion is valid.
That's certainly true. I agree with that.
Okay, well, do you think there is a hierarchy in literary quality?
I think that
there is something being got at the whole way through this debate that I feel like we need to touch on. And it's just briefly the idea that, like, how the fuck do atheists justify anything? If you're an atheist, why do you get out of bed in the morning? I'm a serious question. I'm not saying you have to be a mystic schizo like me and believe in astrology. I'm not saying you have to be an ortho bro like Bayer and subscribe to the one true holy and apostolic Catholic Church. I'm just asking you simply, where do you derive your values from?
Dude, the only honest answer is Camus. We don't, well, not we, I believe in God, but they don't. It's the only honest answer. There is no meaning.
There is no meaning, and you make your own meaning, and that's fine. But the moment I don't think they consider the implications that come with that. The moment you abandon the hierarchy and the structure and the values that underpin everything, you can say, "Oh, Camus," and I make my own meaning. That's absolutely fine. But why do you then continue to live your life by a Christian moral framework laid out? You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't make sense. All of that should go out of the window with gay, reckless abandon. The moment you say you're an atheist. Because all of the values come downstream. I don't know.
Bro, it's they want to be wrong. And the issue with someone like Jordan Peterson is like, Christ couldn't just say I'm Christ. He had to be crucified. The religious framework's about passion. It's about inspiration. So it's like these emotional, like, retarded acts. They need inspiration. And Jordan Peterson's uninspiring. Like,
he is now. But God, he didn't used to be, man. He really didn't used to be. It's a shame what's happening.
But what I'm saying is he's too much air. You need, like, religion comes from the heart fire. You need fire.
Yeah. Big Gemini guy, Peterson. He is a bit of an intellectual masturbator. He really.
But So that's the thing. So that's why Camus is more honest, because he doesn't say make your own meaning. He's not an existentialist. He says there is no meaning.
Camus? Oh, my bad. Yeah. Okay. I'm thinking
there is no meaning to deal with it. And in The Stranger, the main character is like, at that time, so the idea kind of changes. That's sort of the ideal of, like, the absurd hero. The dude, like, literally just kills someone for no reason. So he's honest. He's honest in that book. This is what living without meaning looks like. Like, he portrays this, like, weird sociopath.
They actually live like that, is my point.
When no one does, not even Camus.
Peterson is right when he says the ideals are expressed far more in how you live day to day than what you profess to believe in. And they actually go around day to day like good little virtuous Christian people. So you can talk a big talk all they like about it, but it's like, if you really believe in Camus, then get to Camus maxing. I'm just not seeing any Camus maxing for people. Yeah, but that's fascinating. I got Sartre and Camus confused.
So can I correct someone in the chat? You said someone said heart is air and gut is fire. No. Heart is fire, head is air. Hair, your hair, air, and then gut is water, and then your genitals are earth.
Yeah, so even Camus quits Camus maxing, right? So later,
really? It gets too absurd even for him.
Yeah, so later he writes this book called The Plague. That's one of his later developments of his absurdism philosophy. And so in that, the main character, the new absurd hero, basically what he decides, so there's this giant plague going around, right? And you get to see all the kind of different psychological interpretations, right? The hard atheist, there's a priest character, and they're all reacting to this horrible plague. And the absurd hero, what he does in that situation is just freaking do Christian values anyway and just help everyone as much as he can, even though he doesn't believe in anything. So exactly your point.
Right.
True atheist would be the sad maxing, man.
No, definitely. They definitely actually need to revisit The Stranger. There's a thing. The Stranger said Dostoevsky the other day. I mean, I don't know. I need to take a look at that. I don't think atheism necessarily implies latent nihilism. It depends how you're defining nihilism, but it kind of does. It kind of fucking does, right? For example, if you're gonna stack, like, the best you can do for something like do not murder someone is some vague evolutionary eugenic eusocial, like we're bees in a beehive. The reason I don't kill someone is because somewhere in my evolutionary biology there's this desire for me to be. I'm sorry, anyone who's experienced like real road rage will know that that's not the reason you don't kill someone. You know what I mean? Like, the reason you don't kill someone is because you have like a real morality that stops you from killing people.
I think there's a weird level of fear to that too. I think people are scared of that kind of stuff. Like, So like Jordan, you made a great point. It's like what you profess versus what you do is so much more powerful. And that's the issue with like these religious circles. It's like, what are you just gonna talk about being Christian for 50 years?
It's the same thing, Coco. I walked into God versus atheism and got nihilism versus meaning. No, genuinely, I believe the two to be inextricably interlinked. I don't see how anybody can't. But this may just be a me thing.
Well, if I could just say something real quick, I don't think it's like possible to become like a complete nihilist, but that's just also from like a biological standpoint where like even if you are an atheist or you don't believe in a God, like maybe more of like an agnostic, your body is just gonna like act as if you do have meaning because that's just what it needs to do to stay alive. So it kind of creates its own values or just adopts the ones that you've been presented with as like a child. And that's just because it's like a survival technique.
Well, yeah. I will say there is the point to be made. Like a drug addict who's basically killing himself with heroin is basically the embodiment of nihilism. Substance use is like completely interchangeable with philosophy. So like what substance you use definitely is gonna parallel your beliefs. So it's like this guy could say he's a nihilist, but he's not at a train station trying to overdose on heroin. So yeah, like
he's not under a bridge. Like no, that's interesting. I always like the Jung thing of like the junkie is actually a failed mystic in a sense that they're on some search for like God that's like deeper than. But yeah, I totally get what you're saying.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I mean, like even like the junkie who's abusing drugs or killing themselves slowly. It's still like their will pulling them in a direction. It might be like a horrible direction for them, but they're still like chasing something from doing that. Even if it's just like a cheap dopamine shot, that's still like what their body is craving. So it's like the will is pulling them in that direction. Well, even if like from the outside, right, you can see the junkie in the train station. It's like someone needs to like get that guy into a rehab facility or just like take the drugs away. But the will is not like free in the sense to make that decision.
Well, like this gets into like the schizoesoteric stuff. They might be chasing literal nothingness, death.
Yeah, it could be an explanation like that, right?
Yeah.
There is a hierarchy to an extent in literary quality, but I think once you get to a certain threshold, it is just opinion. Like I agree, Dostoevsky is better than a porno mag, but is F. Scott Fitzgerald better than Ernest Hemingway? I don't know.
Yeah, fair enough. Why do you think that?
Because of what a book is, what literature is. Dostoevsky, he follows what literature is the purpose of more than the porno magazine.
Okay, good. Well,
so it's about purpose.
So let me, sure. Let me give you an analog then.
Okay.
The depth of worship is analogous to depth of literary significance, and the closer you get to what's deep, the more religious and worshipful your practice.
So
and maybe you don't know what's at the bottom, but something needs to be, or you're confused.
Well, so to use your analogy, then how deep do I have to go for it to be worship? Do I have to be Catcher in the Rye? Do I have to be War and Peace? Or
it depends on what you're seeking for.
I'm seeking to know whether I worship something. You've claimed I worship something, and
if you want to have a deep and meaningful life, then you have to go all the way to the bottom.
This guy hates his fucking wife.
And insofar as you're capable of doing that, because otherwise you'll be fragmented and miserable and anxiety-ridden and hopeless.
So I have to worship something to have a meaningful life. And if
there's no difference between those two things.
Okay.
They're the same thing.
So if I don't worship anything, my life will not be meaningful, correct?
Well, that's the definition of nihilism.
Okay. So if I'm a nihilist, I don't worship anything.
That's true. And then you...
okay. Mm-hmm. You just said everybody worships something. I think you just agreed there is a class of people that doesn't.
Well, they're incoherent in their worship. And hand gestures...
You don't have to. That makes perfect sense to me. Yeah, same impulse, wrong direction. The right impulse, in the wrong direction is exactly how I would describe it, yeah. And there's definitely something to that. Not to say that every fucking crackhead is like a,
twin,
a priest in waiting or whatever.
George.
Help.
All right.
Twins.
Fuck's sake.
Every week I get hours back.
Just try it for free, though.
George, you need to use the secret AI tool, bro.
Bro, it's just been trying to sell me AI calendars for a month now.
What happens if your objects of worship are unstructured and chaotic? Then you're going to be anxiety-ridden and without hope. That happens. That's a technical argument.
But there's happy nihilists.
Oh,
How do you explain that there are happy nihilists then? Because you just said they
the
can't
mere
be.
fact that you state that there are happy nihilists doesn't make it true. Like, what's your evidence? That how do you measure nihilism, and how have you associated it with happiness, and what's your definition of happiness? And have you compared them to religious people? Because if you do, by the way, it's clearly the case that religious people over the long run have better mental health It's a well-documented fact in psychological literature.
Sure.
So your claim is just a claim. It doesn't stand on anything.
So you disagree with the claim that there exists even one happy nihilist?
I didn't say that.
Okay, would you agree there exists at least one happy
nihilist? I could just
okay, fucking chill about this guy's wife.
Bro, it's his entire psychology. There's a happy nihilist. Yeah, go have an orgy then, Dionysus. Like what?
He actually has a massive scar in the side of his head from when his wife hit him with a frying pan, and he's never got over it.
As far as I'm concerned, because it depends on what you mean by happy, and it depends on the duration that you're trying to calculate over. Now and then, there's probably some deluded soul who thinks he's a nihilist who's momentarily pleased with himself. But as a long-term strategy to deal with the future, to get along with yourself and with others, it's sadly lacking. That's why Nietzsche warned that when God died, as he announced in 1850, that people would be flooded with pointless, anxiety-ridden, hopeless nihilism. And that was what would attract them to, for example, to the false gods of totalitarianism, which is exactly what happened, because everybody worships something, even atheists who think they don't.
Aren't there unhappy Christians or devoted believers? So worshiping something is neither sufficient nor necessary for happiness then?
Well, terrible things can come your way regardless, and that does happen. But it's the case that even when circumstances become deeply troublesome, that how you're oriented makes a big difference. So I'll give you an example. So the book of Job deals with the issue of unfair suffering. So Job is a good man who has everything taken away from him in the most painful possible way.
To settle a bet, right?
Pause.
So
notice how Jordan Peterson brought up the one guy who didn't have his wife taken away from him. He knows, bro. This is like the issue. Like Jordan Peterson, just say, bro, do you hate your wife? Like you worship her. Like fuck you.
Bro, I think he may be tapped into what you were tapped into, but if it is, it's not because he's a schizo-psychic. It's because he's a clinical psychiatrist or a psychologist, and he's done this so many times. He's seen guys like this before.
Makes the axiomatic presumption that he won't lose faith in himself or in the spirit of being itself. And that helps him remain calm and forward-looking through his time of trial.
Doesn't he absolutely curse God?
No. His wife tells him to do that.
His wife?
Oh, his wife tells him to do it. You might be onto something there, you know. Do you worship my wife? Do I worship my wife?
Do I worship my wife? Do I worship my wife?
My final point.